being here tonight. We will get back to our meeting, starting with student representative comment. Hello, ladies.
So for the student representatives, we're basically just finishing our prom planning. Junior prom is May 11th and senior prom is June 1st, so they're coming up very fast. And that's our main priority right now, so that's all that's happening for student government.
Usually we have the student government meetings before the Board of Ed meetings, but due to scheduling, we haven't had the opportunity. But our next meeting is this Wednesday, April 18th, after school. And we're looking forward to some exciting things that we have in the works. And we'd just like to take a moment to thank the boosters and PTSA for the water fountains. They just came in and they'll be installed soon. So we're really looking forward to those and some nice ice-cold water. Each month, we recognize a student for their unselfish service to the community and schools. And for the month of March, we'd like to recognize Anna Styler. Join me. March is unsung hero has been working hard to better the community. For the past year, she has been volunteering as a candy striker at a community hospital in Palm River, and she plans on continuing in the upcoming years. She's prepared herself by volunteering during the work week as well as Saturdays. This, alongside with her schedule of AP Psychology, AP Environmental Science, and Human Anatomy and Physics, are helping her to prepare for a future as a nurse. She stands up for what she believes in, and shows that because she is an active member of Heroes and Cool Kids. She has a rigorous class schedule involving several AP and honors classes, and due to her academic success, she is a member of the National Honor Society. Her achievements don't stop there. She is a dedicated athlete who plays field hockey in the fall and in the spring softball. She has also been a part of the travel softball since she was 12. In an effort to be more involved in our community, she was a Girl Scout for 9 years until she began high school. For these reasons, Savannah Styler has been chosen as March's unsung hero. So next, I'm presenting the recipient of April's Matthew Blum Unsung Hero Award, and that's Jordan Brewer. Jordan is one of Lacey Township High School's most spirited students. No matter the event, she can always be seen going above and beyond to spread the abundant amount of lion pride she carries with her. Jordan is always willing to lend a hand with student government-related events, whether it's decorating the hallways for Battle of the Classes, or simply providing new and insightful ideas at the monthly meetings. She is also an involved member in peer mediation, chemistry club, and the international club. Jordan is an esteemed student as well. She is a member of the National Honor Society and has made sure to maintain all A's and B's throughout her high school career. Jordan is equally involved in after-school activities as well. She's a player on both the Lacey High School field hockey team and lacrosse teams. It is for these obvious reasons that Jordan Brewer has been selected as April's Matthew Blum Unsung Hero Award. And that's all for us.
Good.
Yep.
All right, nice work. Okay, now for the report of the superintendent.
Yes, first, thanks everyone for being here tonight. I like a full house. I think we're going to have a lot of recognition, some great celebrations tonight. I want to thank Mr. Brandis for organizing and making sure that we finally got our music recognition and our students here that are going to be performing shortly in our musical for Guys and Dolls. We have quite a few recognitions with Students of the Month. We have some Mill Pond recognition, and we have a donation that's going to be postponed until the 21st of May from the Rotary. They have a kind donation that's coming on to us at that point. So what we're going to do is the board's actually going to come and sit with the audience and observe and enjoy our presentation, but I'm going to ask Mr. Brandis to come down now as we head out and grab a seat in the audience. So thank you.
Sunday matinee performance at 2 o'clock. It's going to be a special event, a special musical. Mr. Olander, his staff, and his students have all been working very hard and diligently rehearsing for this musical, and I think the community is really going to enjoy the event. Unfortunately, because of some illness between one of the students and Mr. Olander, they can't perform tonight, but I think they're working pretty hard to pull off an amazing show. So we're already proud of them, and we look forward to, again, it's April 26th, 27th, and 28th at 7 o'clock, and 29th at 2 o'clock matinee. So please join us. First, I'd like to recognize the March Students of the Month. First, I would like to introduce and have join me down at the podium, Autumn Layer. Congratulations. Congratulations to Autumn and her family who are in attendance tonight. Congratulations to well-deserved honor. Right now, we're going to watch some of the accolades of Autumn and a video. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Greg Brand. I'm from East High School, and I'm here with March's Senior of the Month, Autumn Layer. Congratulations. And here to celebrate her accomplishments is Nick Hicks.
Hi, I'm Nick Hicks. I'm here with Autumn Laird, the March Senior of the Month. Autumn, what are you going to miss most about Lacey Township High School?
Probably I'm going to miss the teachers. They're all very dedicated to what they do. They don't care not only about your overall grades, they care about how you are personally, how you're doing in the class. And it's more of a friendship kind of relationship more than just a teacher-student. I think I'm really going to miss that.
Lacey's got some great teachers. What are you involved with in the school? Any clubs?
I am involved in lots of stuff actually. I'm part of the field hockey program. I'm the captain. I'm a part of the bowling program. I'm also involved in lacrosse, and then I am vice president of the National Honor Society, president of the Green Team, Interact, and SGA. Just involved in those two. I'm not president.
That's a lot of involvement. Speaking of teachers, who's your favorite teacher here at Lacey?
I wouldn't say I definitely had a favorite teacher because I've had a lot of awesome teachers going through Lacey Township High School, and I'd say that they're all influential in their own special ways. But if I had to pick one, it would have to be Mr. Brada. I've had him for 3 years now. I've had him for biology my freshman year, 18 environmental, and then now I have him for gym class microbiology. And I just feel like his dedication to teaching science has made me more passionate about it over the years. And he's also my NHS mentor, and we've developed a really close friendship over the course of the years. And just his dedication really drives me forward to move on to the science building.
Autumn, congratulations on Senior of the Month. I can't believe it's been 3 years now having you in science class, and I'm extremely proud of all your hard work. I can remember as a freshman you coming and telling me that you were going to be a biologist, and after all these years now I can proudly say that I think you're going to do a great job. You're one of the most inquisitive students I've ever had, and I look forward to hearing from you in the future.
So I see you like science. You plan on going into that in the future?
Yes, I actually am. I'm planning on going to Ramapo College in New Jersey in the fall. I will be part of the honors program and will also be playing field hockey. And I plan on double majoring if everything works out in biology and environmental science with a minor in neuroscience. And then after that, planning on going to medical school to become a doctor.
Good plan. Thanks, Autumn Laird. Once again, congratulations on your Senior of the Month for March 2018.
Congratulations again to Autumn and her family. Next, we'd like to congratulate the male student of the month, Avery Cunningham for March. Congratulations. Congratulations to Avery's family as well on this remarkable accomplishment. At this time, we're going to watch Avery's remarkable video and all of his accomplishments as well. Hello, we're back with March's Senior of the Month, Avery Cunningham. Congratulations. And here to celebrate his accomplishments is Darius Saxton.
Hello, I'm Darius Saxton here with Avery Cunningham, Senior of the Month for March. Avery, can you tell me a little about the involvement you have in outside of school?
Certainly. Inside of school, I'm involved with the robotics club, secret team, physics club, and National Honor Society. And outside of school, I'm involved with Boy Scouts.
Can you tell me a little about your accomplishments with Boy Scouts?
Certainly. I achieved my Eagle Scout award this year, and that's on, I built some raised planter beds that are hanging
Hey Avery, congratulations on your Senior of the Month. It's very well deserved, not only because of your successes over the past 4 years, but you always make the people around you successful. And that's what's truly going to be best in Stern Academy when you leave. But we're all looking forward to what you're going to accomplish in the next 4 years. So,
That's awesome. So we're gonna switch things up a little. Really get to know you.
All right.
If you were a fruit, what kind of fruit would you utilize?
Difficult decision. I have to say the envelope is kind of the king of this taxonomy. The large citrus with a very thick tip, and I just quite very much relate to it.
Very exciting. So what's your plan for the future?
I'm looking at studying engineering for 4 years. I'm looking at some colleges right now, filling out some admissions, but I'm excited to, get my college education.
Well, best of luck, Avery. Once again, congratulations, Avery Cunningham, on winning Marcus Senior of the Month.
As Avery walks back, since he shot the video, he was our best in show at our science fair that took place. He moved on to Stockton and then on to Delaware Valley State Competition, where he received a first place in the FMCA Corporation Division, second place in his category, and a special award of an $8,000 scholarship to whichever school or university that he attends. So congratulations. We're moving on to April's Seniors of the Month. I'd first like to congratulate Kylie Weaver to join me at the podium. Okay, I'm sorry. Next, we'll move on to the male award winner, Ryan Hanaway.
Actually, we definitely you want me to skip the video?
Yeah, we can watch the video and, well,
I don't think that's necessary.
no, Ryan, go ahead. Well, we'll watch Ms. McCarr's video first, and then we'll run into Ryan's video as well. Hello, I'm Greg Brandis, principal of Lacey Township High School, and we're here to celebrate April's Seniors of the Month. First, we have Kayla McCarr. Congratulations, Kayla. And here to celebrate her accomplishments is Tyler Wheeler.
I'm here with Kayla Vaccaro, April Student of the Month. Now, Kayla, I'd like to start off by asking you by what activities you are involved with inside or outside of school.
Well, inside of school, I'm involved in Interact Club and International Club, and I also play soccer, lacrosse, and I run track.
Very busy. That's impressive. More than I can do. Now, one teacher in all of Lacey Township High School that you say was the most influential on you. Who would it be?
Definitely Mrs. Belvento. I never actually had her as a teacher, but she pushed me a lot in lacrosse, and she definitely is inspiring. She's definitely one of my leaders.
Kayla Vaccaro is a very dedicated student athlete. She excels not only on the field, but also in the classroom. She's the captain of the lacrosse team. She's made a difference in many sports teams, National Honor Society, and anywhere else she has been a participant in extracurricular activities. I'm proud that she got it. Congratulations, Kayla.
Speaking of who you want to be when you're older, what are your plans after high school?
I am studying pre-medicine at St. Hill University, where after I plan on becoming a doctor and hopefully can do some autopsies so I don't die.
Congratulations to Ryan as well. We'll watch a video of his account. Hello, we're back to celebrate the Seniors of the Month. Here is Ryan Hanaway. Congratulations on being April Senior of the Month. And here again to celebrate his accomplishments is Tyler Wheeler.
Hello, Ryan. I'm going to ask you a few questions, starting off with, first off, what activities are you involved with inside or outside of school?
Outside of school, I'm a member of Boy Scout Troop 61 in Manahawkin, and I'm also on the lacrosse team. I'm in ski club.
Very interesting. Now, if you had to pick one teacher in the whole school to say was the most influential on your life, who would it be?
Definitely Mr. Sotero. He showed me and helped me explore the career path that I want to pursue, and without him, I'd still be clueless.
Congratulations, Brian, on being a Senior of the Month. Couldn't be more proud of you. While we worked on the last 4 years, it really paid off. I know you'll continue your success in college next year. Please keep in touch.
All right, and what exactly are those plans after school?
Student of the Month. We alternate months. So for April, the Vocational Student of the Month is Michael Osenko. Please join me down at the podium. Congratulations. Congratulations to Michael's family as well. Well-deserved honors. We also have another video of Michael as well. Good afternoon. We're back here with Michael Osenko, who's the Vocational Student of the Month. Congratulations, Michael. And here to celebrate his accomplishments is Tyler Wheeler.
Tyler Wheeler, I'm here with the Vocational Student of the Month, Mike Osenko. Mike, how are you today? I'm good, how are you? Pretty good. All right. So, what exactly do you do at your vocational school?
I go to Brooks for personal training and nutrition, so we go over the basics of how to train, how to eat right, and pretty much how to improve overall health of the body.
All right, that sounds interesting. All right. So, what kind of activities are you involved with in or outside of school?
Mainly, I'm the president of Ski Club inside of school, and then outside of school I pursue a very strenuous activity in bodybuilding.
Interesting, better than I can do. So, one teacher in Lacey Township High School that you can say influenced you the most, who would it have to be?
It would definitely have to be Mr. Cicero, the way he taught the classroom to also have fun and enjoy when you're at the class, and also not even realize the kind of information you're taking in and absorbing, made it just a great experience that I like the most in that class.
Congratulations, Mike, on being named Vocational Senior of the Month. All of your hard work inside and outside the classroom has finally paid off. I couldn't be more proud of all your accomplishments. This year in Engineering 1, you definitely made an impact on me, and I know you'll be successful when you leave in June.
And so, after high school, what are your plans?
My plans is I graduate this vocational program with a certificate in personal training, and I'm going to do that as I attend college, OCC for electrical engineering, and then finishing my degree at HI.
Very good.
That concludes our Students of the Month. Thank you, and I'll join you again back down at the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Brandis. That's going to take us on to another recognition, but I'm going to put a couple plugs in through the night so that we have a crowd here. This Wednesday night, as a reminder, is Alice Night, introduction to our parents and community. We invite everyone to come out. We're going to have a great showing. I know that we have our Alice team that has been training, working hard with our staff, professional development, but it'll be time now to educate our parents and bring that out. So that'll be 6:30 p.m. in the auditorium here at the high school, just as a reminder. I'd now like to invite down for a presentation for the Popcorn Zoo fundraiser from Mr. Saboko from Mill Pond School. Mr. Saboko. Mrs. Stevens, Supervisor.
Thank you, Mr. Wigley and Board of Education members, for accepting my request to honor and recognize two of Mill Pond Elementary School's finest young ladies. I would like to invite Hannah Sampson and Melanie Cruz to the podium. Hannah Hannah is a 5th grade student in Mill Pond. Melanie is a 6th grade student in Mill Pond. Hannah and Melanie love their school, they love their families, and they enjoy spending time with their friends like most young people. But what sets Hannah and Melanie apart from many of their peers is that together they form a powerful charitable partnership. About a month ago, Hannah and Melanie wrote me a letter requesting a meeting to talk to me about something good that they wanted to do in Mill Pond. I became very excited to hear what they had in mind. At our meeting, these two young ladies completely impressed me with their idea to do something good. The girls proposed their idea to run a fundraiser at Mill Pond for the Popcorn Park Zoo Animal Shelter, right here in Lacey. They told me that animals in the shelter are in need of food, bedding, collars, along with other pet supplies. I love their idea two young ladies are capable of before becoming teenagers. That's right, they're only 10 and 12. Hannah and Melanie, your Mill Pond family is so proud of you and your charitable accomplishments. You are two young ladies who are certainly improving the world with your gift of caring. Congratulations, and please don't stop sharing your care for others living. We'll conclude this presentation. Hannah's going to read the morning announcement that they wrote. So if you're interested in donating to the Popcorn Park Zoo Animal Shelter fundraiser, you can drop off pet supplies at the Mill Pond School's main office.
Hello, Mill Pond School. This is Hannah Sampson and Melanie Cruz. We are doing a fundraiser for the Popcorn Park Zoo Animal Shelter. They are having a hard time getting supplies for the animals. Some things they're in need of are dog food, cat toys, dog beds, collars, leashes, treats, food bowls, blankets, brushes, or other supplies. Please bring any donations to your homeroom teachers and have them keep track of your name and number of donations you brought in. We will take the two most contributing students to the Popcorn Park Zoo Animal Shelter with us to help put a smile on all these animals' faces. Thank you for your support in helping the animals.
Thank you. And a very, very, very needy donation, and place very deserving of whatever we can do for them. Now I'm going to move on now to a recognition that was going to occur last month, but I know Mr. Montague has been anxious and prideful with some musician awards, and if you would come up, Mr. Montague, from the high school and present, appreciate it.
Good evening to the community, Board of Education, Mr. Wigley, Mr. Brandis, thank you for having me here for this. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chris Montague, and I am the Director of Bands here at Lacey Township High School. It is with pleasure to stand in front of you tonight to announce and recognize 5 of our Lacey High School band students for making it into the All-Shore Symphonic Band. The band is comprised of students from the high schools of Monmouth and Ocean counties, and students are accepted through a blind audition process which consists of performing scales, a prepared solo, and sight reading, which included a few hundred students for this audition for this year. It should be recognized the extra time, commitment, private lessons, and hard work these students have devoted on top of what they would normally practice for the band here, and also their academic studies to prepare for such an audition. Also to be recognized are the other music teachers in the district that have worked with these students at the various grade levels, and their private teachers that these students take weekly lessons with. Let's not forget their parents too, because without the support of their parents, they wouldn't be able to do what they do. It is with great pride that I ask the following students to come down when I call their name up. First up, we have senior Angela Fiorentino. She made it into the All-Shore Band on French horn. There she comes. She's funny, when we're on stage, we're used to looking down at the audience, but I'm used to looking up and seeing this. It's weird. Also used to the auditorium being dark. Next up is junior Emily Brennan. She made it in on the oboe. Next up, I'd like to call down Theodore Vidal. He made it in on bass clarinet, and he was first chair and ranked first overall for All-Shore. Next up, I'd like to recognize sophomore Jenna Strickler. She made it in on French horn. She's down here. And last but not least, I would like to call down Gavin Brennan, freshman. He made it in on the trumpet. Probably one of the most important taken on. This year, along with Point Borough, Lacey had the most students represented from Ocean County in the All-Shore Band. Lastly, as their band director, it is a pleasure to come to work every day knowing I get to teach such fantastic students. Once again, please give a round of applause for these students and their accomplishment and representation of Lacey Schools. We have some really great stuff going on in our fine arts department, so please give them another round of applause on their accomplishment.
Very nice. 3, 2, 1. Very good. Congratulations.
Just a note to any parent, musician, might be a big guy, but I was an alto saxophone, I mentioned this before. Your parents' commitment to keeping that instrument, in my case, rented at the time, it was a rental that ended up being purchased, and just getting you to practice was a challenge. And to see the work that's being done at the high school, the middle school, our fine arts department, performing arts, is really a prideful moment. So I would congratulate not just Mr. Montague and Mr. DeVivo and Mr. Olander, but also the parents that take that burden on, especially if you're a marching band parent and the commitment it takes. So they need to take a deep breath and be thankful for the time commitment, because we know what they go through. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Brandis to introduce our championship state ball.
Thank you. And to do that, I'm going to ask Coach Mahar to come join me. Our two-time state championship head coach. Back to back.
All right, first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Wigley and Dr. Clark and the rest of the members of the Board of Ed, Mr. Brandis, Mr. Angelo, and Mr. Dowd for having the girls here tonight to give them the recognition that they so truly deserve. For those of you that don't know about the bowling team, the 2017-18 Lacey Girls Bowling Team is one of the most successful, if not the most successful teams in Lacey Township High School history. They finished the season winning the Group 2 state championship, back-to-back South Jersey section championship, and they also won the Shore Conference B South championship for the first time in school history. They ended up being ranked number 3 in the state, and when I stood before you last year with last year's team, and we set or broke 27 school records, I didn't think it would be possible to beat that. But this year, this team either set or broke 60 school records. They rewrote the entire record. They finished this regular season with a record of 40-5. And thanks to the Board of Ed, we entered 12 events this year, and we brought home trophies in 10 of them. So they had a very, very successful year. Some individual postseason awards. Liz Schreier, first team All-Shore Conference, high honorable mention All-State, first team All-Group 2. Autumn Laird, second team All-Group 2, honorable mention All-State. Julia Muro, second team All-Group 2, honorable mention All-State. And Claudia Schreier, third team All-Group 2. I don't think that's ever been done before. Matter of fact, I know it's never been done before with the girls bowling team. I'm now going to call down the young ladies one at a time, and if you would help me pass out their certificates. There's 2 for each, one for the section and one for the group. Autumn Laird, we're going to call them down. Julia Muro. Samantha Tremblay. Megan Hanaway. Sierra Baker. Megan Fitzgerald. And Savannah Farrell. Okay, unable to attend tonight, but members of the team as well were Angela LaForgia and Morgan Lima. They wish they could have been here, but they had prior commitments. 2017-18 state champion.
One, two, three, smile. All right, congratulations again.
Third time's a charm.
Now I'd like to bring Mr. Brandis back to the microphone for recognition of our high school wrestling program and accolades accomplished in this past season.
Just to reiterate, a nice good segue from bowling into wrestling. For those, again, I think it's worth repeating. The girls bowling team not only won the sectional New Jersey, like the football or baseball team will win Group 3, South Jersey, and that's when it ends. The girls bowling team went beyond that, all the way to the entire state. No matter it was Group 1, 2, 3, or 4, South Central Jersey. They were the third best high school in the entire state of New Jersey. It was a remarkable accomplishment, so congratulations again. So that goes now to segue into our wrestlers who have a similar format. They go down to Atlantic City and they have an ultimate state champion at each weight class. So at this time, I'd like Hunter Gutierrez, Luke Monahan, and Luke Gutierrez to please join me down here at the podium. Congratulations to these three student athletes. I'm going to read off their accolades. Hunter is an outstanding young man, both on and off the mat. Hunter carries a 4.2 GPA as a member of the National Honor Society. On the mat, Hunter had another tremendous season. He won 3rd district title, 2nd regional title, is now a 3-time state qualifier. Hunter reached the 100-win mark as a junior and will enter his senior year with 102 career wins. Luke Monahan. Luke has had an outstanding career with the Lions and will be sorely missed. Luke is another tremendous person both on and off the mat. Luke attends the Mates Academy and excels academically. On the mat, Luke has had an excellent career. He is a 4-time district finalist and 2-time champion. Luke was the region runner-up this year, which makes him a 2-time state tournament qualifier. Luke finished his career as the all-time career wins leader with 128 career wins here at Lacey Township High School. Hunter's eyeing that mark up. And Luke Gutierrez. Luke put together one of his best seasons in Lacey history, which caps off a very solid career. He's an excellent role model both on and off the mat. Luke's dedication and commitment is second to none. He carries a 4.0 GPA and is also a member of the National Honor Society. This season, Luke won the Shore Conference Tournament, District 27 Tournament, Region 7 Tournament, and finished 4th in the New Jersey State Tournament. Luke finishes his career with the 2nd most career wins in program history with 124. Luke has been accepted and will be attending the United States Merchant Marine Academy next year. So congratulations.
And we wanted to take advantage of having a good audience here tonight because this month is a special month as we recognize autism awareness. And we have Ms. Nemeth from Mill Pond School who's going to do a presentation and some recognition in regards to our programs here in Lacey. Nemeth?
Good evening. Before I begin, I just want to congratulate all of the students who are recognized this evening for their great and wonderful accomplishments. I'd also like to recognize their families as well. I would like to say thank you to the Board of Ed, Mr. Wigley and Dr. Clark for the opportunity to shine a light on autism awareness. As Mr. Wigley said, April is Autism Awareness Month. Did you know about 1% of the world population has an autism spectrum disorder? Additionally, more than 3.5 million Americans live with an autism spectrum disorder. Autism Speaks defines autism spectrum disorders as a range of conditions characterized by challenges with social skills, repetitive behaviors, speech, and nonverbal communication, as well as unique strengths and differences. As you can see, Autism Speaks has encouraged everybody to light it up blue for autism awareness, and that takes place on April 2nd. In Mill Pond, we celebrated on April 13th, so there were many different ways we were able to light it up blue. So as you can see, our hallways were decorated, our doors were decorated, and outside every classroom there was a blue balloon. Additionally, our staff and students all supported the Light It Up Blue by wearing blue. We had a great presentation from POAC, who is the parents of children with autism, and they came in and they shared unique differences and challenges and different ways that we can support all the students with autism in our building and just around in our community. And that was presented to our 5th and 6th graders. Our preschool students also participated, and they were finger painting different ribbons to hang up around the hallways. We're so proud of all of our students, not only in Mill Pond, but in Lacey Township, for choosing kind and learning, embracing, and supporting differences. This is only a glimpse into what Lacey Township did to support autism awareness, and I'm truly honored to be a part of an organization that celebrates and embraces all abilities. So, thank you.
So at this point, that concludes the recognitions and celebrations of our students and their achievements for this portion of the meeting. The board is going to return to the dais, and I know that some people have homework to do, and they may want to get in there and get it done. So we'll need a second for everyone to move there.
Ask Avery.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Good luck.
What's up, bro? How's it going? Good.
See you
You
next
guys are gonna
month.
hang around?
Thanks. Take care. See you.
Never mind. It's all right. It's all right.
Good night.
Later, man.
See you next month. Thanks.
Get that outside.
I did. I grabbed one.
It's all right in the middle.
Got it.
I'll give you the history. Yeah, I think everyone around the area has worked.
Good job.
Let's try and read both your
Good job, sweet.
That wasn't far fall from the tree, huh?
Bye-bye.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Oh, I gotta move this.
Tom. Yes, please.
What's that? Oh, you want it up?
All right. Thank you very much for all of that. It's good. It's impressive. And now on to the next part of the night, public comment. Have anybody, we don't have a list this month. Oh, before we do that, we do have one comment we'd like to make.
Okay. I'd like to take this opportunity to offer an apology to the members of the public that were before the board on the March 19, 2018 public meeting. At that time, I regrettably made an emotionally charged comment directed towards certain members of the public. I appreciate that individuals were offended by that reference. That reference was made during the course of very heated discussions and was not intended to offend anybody. Nonetheless, I wish to accept responsibility for my actions. I'd like to tell you a little bit about who I am. My name is Chris Subsey, and except for a year or two, when I lived in Seaside Park, I've been a resident of this town for the past 49 years. I've been a resident of this town. I grew up in Bamber Lake. My youth involved regular outdoor activities, including fishing, playing sports, hiking, exploring the woods and swamps and the lakes that are around this area. I grew up around hunters, and I learned to appreciate and respect the virtues of responsible gun ownership. I graduated from Lacey Township High School in 1987, where I was very actively involved in sports in the school community. As an adult, I have also served on many different boards as a volunteer and as a volunteer coach for many years with many different sports teams. In effect, I have been and continue to be an individual that was born and raised in this community and who maintains an active role in this community. I'm also an attorney at law. I graduated from Rutgers University undergrad. I went to Villanova School of Law, and in 1994, I passed the bar examinations for the states of New Jersey and Pennsylvania. I've been working as a lawyer ever since. In 2016, I became the board attorney for the Lacey Township Board of Education due to the retirement of Arthur Stein, who had served as the attorney for the Board of Ed since 1987. The law firm known as Stein & Subsey came to exist when I merged my legal practice with Arthur Stein's practice in December of 2000. For the 16 years that followed, I would assist Mr. Stein on matters involving the Lacey Township Board of Education. Since 2016, I've been the primary attorney furnishing representation to the Lacey Township Board of Education. While the Lacey Township Board of Education represents interests of the staff and students of this school district, it also represents the interests of the Lacey Township community. As the attorney for the Lacey Township Board of Education, by extension, I also represent the interests of the community. The circumstances which have been brought up before the Board of Education involving student matters and the implication of First Amendment rights involve very complicated legal issues. There are many important decisions that have been issued involving the exercise of and discipline of students that exercise their rights to speak. While it is appreciated that there are circumstances that have generated a great deal of public interest, the unfortunate reality is that those circumstances involve matters involving students for which this board is bound by a higher obligation. That higher obligation mandates that the board cannot discuss the content of a student matter in this public forum. It is my responsibility and obligation not only to the Board of Education, but to the students, staff, and members of this community to preserve and protect the confidentiality of those student matters. This burden is difficult in circumstances in which the board would like to express itself so that the public could appreciate why certain actions were or were not taken. This board fully appreciates the emotion which is surrounding the current circumstances. We will do our best to address your concerns in a manner which is permissible under the law to the best of the ability of this board. We hope that you could appreciate the limitations of the law and that our obligation to maintain student confidentiality greatly limits the board's ability to respond to questions that delve in those areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. And to kind of echo what Chris had just mentioned there, for those that are here to talk about the same topic as last week, we'll do our best. We understand that we didn't, you can't hear me back there either?
Make sure it's on.
Make sure it's on.
Just bring it closer.
There, it's on. Okay. Sorry about that. Can you hear me in the back now? Okay. No, just saying that we will do our best to answer the questions as best we can. Like Chris said last time, it was a little bit of a heated evening, and I apologize for the way we responded by not answering. We'll do what we can this time around, still maintaining that confidentiality. So with that, I guess we can do like we normally do. It's work our way across the room, starting from this side. Come on down. Yeah, as a reminder, if you could say your name and address when you come up. Thank you.
Yeah, you can lift it up if you want.
Nick Spaltro, and I live in the Seabreeze community. I'm Dunbury Drive. So I'm also here not only as a taxpayer and a resident, we also represent the Seabreeze Civics Affairs Committee. Last week, we had a meeting in our clubhouse that was attended by about 200 of our residents. If you don't know about Seabreeze, it's a 568-home development of which Toll Brothers has over 300 homes sold now. So there's nominally about two people per household, sometimes more if adult children come along. So we had 200 people in the clubhouse, and what we do is we brief the community on what's going on in town at different levels. And one of the topics was school budget, 3.6% increase. A lot of people are upset in the Seabreeze community. As you may know, we're an adult community. We send no one to school, so we have zero impact on the school. But we provide a huge societal benefit. In fact, we have a retired CFO that I think business administrators are very well acquainted with, Matt Golubetsky. And Matt's gone in and looked at a lot of budget items and looked at a lot of different items, which I won't get into because that's Matt's wheelhouse. But, you know, we're really concerned because we see things coming down the road. We're involved with the governing body in issues like the Oyster Creek closing. Now, Seabreeze is kind of an interesting community. Some people are local. Some people come from northern New Jersey. I come from Monmouth County. But we're generally retired professionals. So engineers, executives. We have an retired energy company executive on our committee. So when we look at what's coming down the pike here, and we look at the fact that the Oyster Creek generating station contributes something like $75 million to the local GDP, and it's going to go away. You know, and the town's known for 10 years it's going to go away. We also look at the declining enrollment
know what's going down yet, 3.6% budget. I can tell you that our Social Security income didn't increase this past year, anywhere near that. So you folks, some of you have been elected as agents of change. I think some of the recent members of the board that were recently elected said we're going to change things. Well, I think you all need to be agents of change here, and I think we've got to look at right-sizing, not only the town, but the school. And the school is 2/3 of our tax bill. And we've got to look at that in the face of what's coming down the road here. And hopefully, we'll have assistance from the state and hopefully the federal government with regard to some of the funding issues with the plant. But we're going to lose, something like, it's $13 million is what that plant contributes to the town. Forget about the contribution of everybody else. But when those people go away and that plant closes down, the town's going to feel it. And you folks, as agents of change, need to make sure that we're right-sizing this budget accordingly. And, our intention is, of our Civics Affairs Committee, through people like Matt, is to keep focus and watch on what's going on. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can say, too, that I think Nick and I are going to be meeting with Ron and a couple folks tomorrow afternoon to have that conversation about all that stuff. Come on down.
My name is Cheryl Carano. I live at 718 Tampa Road, Brook River. I would like to address the entire board. Recently, I handed a letter in to the board. I work in the cafeteria. And recently we hired a new food service director, and I've been having issues with her. So I wrote a letter to the board and addressed it to the entire board, and I got no response. Well, as of today, I handed in my letter of resignation. 2 weeks from now, I went to hand it to Monica Sapuli, who is my food service director, and supposedly the head of the cafeteria. Handed it to her, and she was taken from me. So I said to her, what would you like me to do with it? Would you like me to put it in your mailbox? She said yes. Okay, I did that. I also gave a copy to Robert Thiel, and I gave a copy to Mr. Wigley. And also, she has my letter that I sent to the board sitting on her desk, unopened. And she also has Lisa Wilson's resignation letter sitting on her desk, unopened. Now, I've worked with the system for 11 years. I've been through a lot of kids. My kids went to school here. I feel that I've got treated, I've been harassed by her, and everybody seems to be taking her word over mine and Lisa's. And I don't think it was fair. I got my overtime taken away, was told I don't do my job. All I do is stand around and talk, which is definitely not true, because if that was true, I think I would have been fired years ago.
We're delving into areas, you have a right to speak, and I don't want to cut you off. I want to allow you an opportunity to speak, but we're delving into areas dealing with personnel matters. And I would just tell you to be careful in terms of the communication that you make. There are laws, and there are laws regarding individuals' rights dealing with defamation and things like that. And I'm not telling you to say anything or not to say anything. All I'm saying is use caution. That's all.
Okay, well, I'm not saying anything bad about her. I basically wanted an answer to my letter, and I didn't get that. I was told that I lost my overtime due to
Mrs. Carano. Cheryl, Mrs. Carano. I can say that when we got your letter, we might not have replied, but we are having conversations, and it's something that we're going to be looking into. All right. Thank you. Yep, yeah, thank you.
My name is Aldi Sunrise Beach. A couple of meetings ago, I think I mentioned to you about autism and how it affects kids in the United States, and how in New Jersey, I think it's 1 in 64 males, the average national, and I think I told you it's 1 in 32 males in New Jersey. We talked about football and how maybe it could affect, some change. But I am glad to see that we're looking way down the road with special needs. It's coming, it's going to get bigger. You're going to have to address it within the next 5, 10 years, as we did with drugs and alcohol. We got to do something down the road big time with special needs kids, so keep it in mind. First, enrollment. Enrollment was already mentioned. I see in the superintendent's report, it's at 4113. What was it last year at this time? Did we go up or down?
I think we're within the range of fluctuating between 50 students, up or down, probably, it's
It's not the same?
in and out, almost the same.
Okay, well, that kind of brings my concern to light. In section 5 here, if there's no change, I don't understand something. Last year, did we not eliminate some bus routes to increase walking? Anybody within 2 miles in a safe sidewalk, doesn't have to cross main roads, within state law, they walk, correct? We implemented that last year. Now logically to me, and probably correct me if you do, but if we increase walkers, doesn't that reduce bus routes? So if we reduce bus routes and we reduce bus drivers, I don't understand, do we lay off bus drivers? When we did the walking routes?
Sure. Okay, so we simply agreed that those who were not entitled to free transportation at a certain grade span would need to either subscribe to the bus and pay, right, or walk. But that did not decrease ridership to any significant degree, nor could it reduce the number of routes that we have, because we're on a 6-tiered system, which means that every bus pretty much stops at every school. We have less buses. If we had more less tiers rather, we'd have more buses. So we have the minimum amount of buses we have. We couldn't possibly reduce any routes due to the small number of children who decided that they would walk as opposed to subscribe to the bus. So there was no way that we could have an opportunity to reduce routes, vehicles, or drivers.
Okay, so the people who were supposed to be forced to walk and pay.
Yes,
Okay.
most of them.
So they put that money into our general budget, yes?
Yes, at
About how much?
about $180 a child, less than $20,000.
Less than $20,000. Okay. So our savings was approximately $120,000 that we made, because they paid and continued to be bused, right? That would be
Sorry, can you ask that again, please?
$120,000, would you say, or?
20,000
Or 20,000.
total.
So it really didn't do us any good, did it?
It did not.
Okay. I also see in section 10 that you're getting rid of or dispose or look for sale of 2002 AM80 bus for $200. It works. It works. For $200.
That's a great question people may not have considered before. Before we offer up buses for disposal, but the law says that we can only keep a bus on the road for 14 years. So we cycle buses in and out every single year to keep them at the same number in our inventory. But when we dispose of a bus, we harvest the parts that we would want to use to fix other buses when they fall in disrepair. So it's quote-unquote operable, but it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of money to get it up to run
So
again.
we're going to get rid of that one.
Yes, and a few more will come down the road in the same way.
And how many seats are on that one we're getting rid of?
That is a 54 passenger.
54, but if you look at section 5 here, it says we're going to buy 4 54-passenger buses and one wheelchair school bus, and we're going to be looking to spend $430,000 over the next 5 years.
That is correct, yes.
We're only getting rid of one, but we're bringing on 5.
Right, well, as I said, if you looked at past agendas, we already got rid of one of the 5 that we're talking about replacing, right? And over the summer, we'll get rid of the remaining 3.
Okay.
So we'll,
Is that going to increase the number of drivers also?
it is not, same exact number of
So same
drivers.
number of drivers.
We keep the same number of assets and the same number of drivers.
They don't get benefits either. Bus drivers get benefits?
Sure,
Okay.
full-time drivers do, yes.
Well, my concern is the same as the young fellow who was up here before me. It's a budget item. It's a big budget item. And us as taxpayers, looking forward, should really keep you on your toes and make sure your pencils are sharp, dot your I, cross your Ts, and bring it to the public and keep it transparent. I've said it before, and I'm going to continue to say it, okay? The taxpayers want to hear everything about everything. Just keep it transparent, explain what you're doing, and I think it'll be better off for all of us, on this side of this mic, and on that side of it. I think that's it. Oh, we also received, I believe it was $32,000 under Section 8 here for safety enhancements and for video surveillance equipment. Was that new equipment or replacement equipment? And was that a grant?
Right. The district, along with hundreds of other districts, belong to an insurance consortium to help lower the cost of premiums on property and casualty insurance. As part of that membership, every district is entitled to receive an annual grant. This is not the first time. We've been receiving it for, I would say, 10 years now. And in the past 3 or 4 years, we've used it to augment and kind of enhance our surveillance protocols. So I can't really tell you what exactly we're doing,
Don't want to
but
know.
what we are replacing the old ineffective surveillance devices with newer ones and adding new ones where we couldn't add them before.
Okay, that's good news because safety is paramount both for the students and for the teachers and the employees of the district. And as we all know, there are issues current. I
Yes,
hope
sir.
Alice does help us. Okay, I'm sure these parents, if they're smart, they'll come to this meeting and they'll learn about Alice. Okay, Alice is a nice lady. Okay, everybody should know about her. In the meantime, I do have something on a personal note here
you first, Mr. Subsi. I would like to let you know that we will be retrieving all of your bills and contributions and such for the last 3 years. And as you very briefly spoke about the last meeting that we had, it is my understanding that you, the board, and the principal of the high school has downgraded the boys' punishment for what we still don't know what they did. So it would still be nice if we could understand, as parents, why these boys were punished. From 5 full days of suspension, no classwork, to 4 days, their records supposedly cleared, but no public apology. Is that correct, that there's been no public apology? Can you please answer that question?
Oh, mine? Okay. There's no public apology that I'm aware of, no. And I would say to you, in terms of the remainder of your question, those are all certain assumptions of facts that I can't corroborate,
That was not,
affirm,
that was the only question
or
I
reject.
asked, was there a public apology? I just wanted the rest of the
Well,
stuff on record.
I'm just answering the commentary that, in terms of the information that you presented, it's very factually charged information that there's an analysis done to it, and neither I nor any member of this board can comment publicly about that information, unfortunately.
So going to my next question. If I could, Mr. President, please address Mr. Giordano with this question. Is it true, sir, Mr. Giordano, that you do not even send your children to the public schools in this district? Is that true?
You know what? I'll speak up, because I've been elected twice with people fully aware that my kids don't go to the district. And let me finish, okay? Because you know what? When my oldest son, who's 15 and a freshman, was in kindergarten, Lacey didn't offer full-day kindergarten. So he went to St. Joe's, where he stayed, okay? Now, since Mr. Subsi had a chance to explain his background, let me explain mine. I graduated K through 12 in this district, went to Seton Hall and graduated, and have been in the IT industry for about 25 years. And the reason why I do this, with no kids in the district, by the way, as a volunteer, is because I care about the kids in this district, because I value the experience that I got attending here. Mind you, my father is sitting in the audience, a retired educator. I value education, okay? And I value every kid that goes to this district, every student that goes to this district that has graduated and who will also attend this district. So you could sit there and call that out. I'll just point out that it's been known for, I don't know, two times now, and I've gotten elected. So while I'm talking, because I'm going to talk about this right now, what you're doing with Board Member Downing is a disgrace. It's a disgrace to every board member that's ever been elected, and it's a disgrace to every board member who will ever be elected, okay? And I'll tell you why. You've got a woman sitting here who I ran against, okay? She's been in education for 30 years. She knows about education, probably more so than most people sitting up here, as a teacher and as an administrator, okay? She knows about school law, she knows about a lot of different things. She's experienced. I can only hope that when you're done with your semantics, that the 3 of you that have put this list up, okay, actually go out and run for election. Please get your 10 to 15 signatures and all go out and run for election. Because quite frankly, I'm not up, but in the following year, if you decide that you want to run, please do. And if you win, great. Because if you think that you can come up here as one person or 3 people and make decisions as a board, you're sorely mistaken, and you will learn that in your Board of Education training that you go to. This is a group of 7 board members that acts as a team, that discusses issues and comes to a decision based on the best interests of the school district. Okay, so sorry for the long-winded answer to your question, but that's probably one that's been floating around out there for a couple of years, so hope I
Thank
answered.
you, I appreciate the answer. I'd also like to note that Ms. Downing was on the board when the previous policy that you guys have recently changed was put into effect. So I'd like that on the notes too.
I'd like to comment on that because I think it's important knowing, as a new superintendent in the district for 2 years, I could be the only one, and probably including Mrs. Downing, that's ever had a loaded gun in school as an administrator. I've also been in a school where a student was charged with armed robbery and activated policy 5611. Despite what is written in the handbook, the memorandum of agreement would override any language in the handbook. And I'll reiterate what was said before. That policy, that action was never enacted in any activity in this school year or in the past I can remember here in Lacey. I've had students with bullets in my past, buck knives, you name it, pellet guns and airsoft guns and paintball guns at a swim practice, before practice, playing paintball in the parking lot and getting in trouble. I have had that, and no one here can say that. So I know what it's like to lock down a building at 7 a.m. I know what it's like to have an ROTC student walk up the front lawn of the school when 2,000 kids are arriving at 7 a.m. and locking down the campus. No one has had that feeling and that fear that comes into you and responding. And when you activate that policy, the police are involved. And anything that was in a policy here, whether it be misinterpreted or miswritten, or the purpose of it was never enacted, it doesn't reflect that now, and it never will again. So there is no intention or any violation of a policy or the way something is written to be out of line. It is not enacted. And I, for one, sit back and look back and thankful that that will not and hopefully never occur here in Lacey. But that, just to make that clear, I've written handbooks and seen handbooks for years and years and years, and that part of the policy was not enacted. Just to make that clear again.
So were the police notified when this photo was on Facebook? Was there any kind of investigation involved?
So let me give you an example. Over the past months, after the past, excuse me, I'm going to explain to you, if you'll listen, please. So over the past months since the Parkland shooting, there have been several incidents reported to our school, whether it be images, student behavior, comments, at a heightened time of sensitivity, from not just parents, but from students and staff and faculty members. When that response comes in and there's anything that's even deemed outside of a threat that occurred, whether in school, out of school, school property event, and it's reported, we report it as we're obligated to law enforcement. So any threat, any ominous image, anything that's unidentifiable, yes, we report it. We have a great relationship with Chief DeBella and the Lacey Township Police. They've helped us vet through many situations since I've been here over the past 2 years, and we're very thankful for their cooperation. So, and that should answer your question.
Okay, so then let me bring forward an email that we had obtained through the Oprah machine, and I'd like to thank Gavin Rossi for creating that. It was from Mr. Dowd, and it was addressed to Mr. Wigley, and it admitted that the screenshot of the Snapchat post of the suspended students did not show any intent or threat. But yet the boys got punished for 4 days. Their rights were violated, and there's been no public apology.
I'll respond to that. Again, you're taking information that you received in a vacuum and you're putting it out there as if that's the entire story. And again, we are not going to tell you the entire story because we're not going to violate rights. So I'm sorry that we can't answer that question or give you that information, but we have a higher obligation.
Okay, so you're not going to tell us the entire story because you hid comments purposely on Facebook platforms. As we retrieved another email dated Thursday, March 15th from the Oprah machine, from Mr. Jason England of your IT department, he clearly states that both Mr. Wigley and Mr. Brandis, that some of the public's Facebook comments were made hidden, so they not, with stress, visible to the public. Can you tell us which Facebook platform that these comments were hidden from, please? And how many comments were hidden?
Respectfully, I don't even know what you're talking about.
So there was a, excuse me, there were comments that were placed on websites for Red Night Out and student-related recognitions and highlights of accomplishments that were of a positive nature. And the comments that came from, of which were no Lacey residents, were of hate, insults, and comments where the public, our students, we're not going to be exposed to that.
Okay, but that's violating the First Amendment of free speech,
The-
that
the-
you're hiding people's comments.
The comments were vulgar, insulting, and demeaning.
Okay, so you
And
think
our
that's
students,
that
and the
person
children
being
of Lacey,
vulgar
and the the children of Lacey were not going to be exposed to that on their celebration of Red Night Out and other accolades that they received online.
But you just said you don't hide anything, yet clearly you're hiding people's public comments, so.
Vulgar, demeaning, insulting comments that were jeopardizing students in the way that they were being portrayed is inappropriate. If we had put a post up for the board meeting and said, "Go at it," we would have invited those comments in, but that wasn't there. There's plenty of Facebook arenas to get hits on, and people are doing that already.
So I'd like to address President Claus now. Could you please tell us when your brother-in-law, William Smith, started working at the law firm with Mr. Subsey?
Can I ask first, though? Where did you get that information?
It's public knowledge.
Tell me where you got it.
You don't tell me where you get your information, so
We'll
I'm
answer-
asking.
we'll answer this question.
Tell me where I got
Can I
it.
ask you something?
I am not-
Does that have a bearing on any of this?
It sure does.
And how is that?
Because, Mr. Claus, at any time, did you, from the time period in which your brother-in-law was hired, did you approve any payments to that law firm? And wouldn't you consider that a conflict of interest?
In terms of answering your commentary, Mr. Smith, for a period of time, served in what's called of counsel. He served in an of counsel capacity. He's currently not of counsel, but he was of counsel for a period of time.
So were there any payments approved by you, sir, during that time frame?
I suppose there were, if there were any that came through during that time frame.
Can't hear you.
I said, I suppose there were, if there were any that came through during that time frame. If he did anything, I don't even know what he did.
That's all for me. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you
now.
very much. Anybody else in the middle?
Frank Corbett, 42 Hilltop Drive, Harvard. I had a statement I was going to make, but in listening to some of the statements by the board, I'd like to address them if you see fit. First of all, Mr. Subsey, I'd like to tell you I appreciate your apology. I've known Mr. Subsey for many years. I take you to be a gentleman. And anything that I say, any concerns that I have with the superintendent, the principal, the board attorney, are not personal. I'm not making a personal attack on anybody, and I appreciate it if you don't make a personal attack on me. To answer Mr. Giordano's question, if I had it my way right now, I would recall every member of this board. And I'd like to tell you why. Again, it's not personal. It's the exact statements that you made. I have 30 years in education, therefore I know more about students. Mr. Subsey has an attorney. You said this is complicated legal matters. As a citizen of this country, and as a person who loves the Constitution, I don't find it to be complicated. The Constitution is simple, and it's attorneys who try to complicate the Constitution that make problems for all of us. We say that we can't discuss confidential student matters. It is not violation of anybody's confidentiality if we refer to people as student 1 and student 2, student X and student Y. We, the people of this town, know that you are hiding behind that. All we've asked is an acknowledgement of the mistake, discipline for the people who made the mistake, and we move on. I had a very simple thing I put out the last meeting, and I put out again. I'll say this. I'm not going to speak for anybody else. But if you'll acknowledge what I'm asking today, I will remove myself from that committee, and I will endorse Mrs. Downing and every other one of you if you'll admit this mistake and do this. When it comes to areas of security for our school and safety for our school, if something that a student says or does outside of school comes to your attention, I believe it was Mr. Subsi, our board president, Mr. Wrigley last time said, you have a responsibility to investigate and act. I say, no, you do not. You have a responsibility to report to the police who are qualified to make that decision. And if the police report to you that no crime has occurred, that no threat exists, and no referral for mental health should be made, you have no right to take discipline against that student without due process. My concern as a parent and as a taxpayer, I've empowered this board, voting for you maybe by mistake. So maybe I voted for you by mistake in the past, okay? Because I've entrusted you with certain things to instill the values of this community and the families of this community into our children. Not to take your own personal agenda and try to instill into children. And I'd be willing to poll the board right now and have you go on record, if you would allow me to, Mr. President. Do you agree with that statement that if the Lacey Township Police and the Ocean County Prosecutor investigate an allegation against a student outside of school and find no crime was committed, no threat exists, and no referral for mental health exists, that you should not take any discipline against that child? If you'll all agree to that, I will withdraw myself from that right now, and I'll admit I was wrong.
I'll take that one on. I want to avoid the factual circumstances that brings everybody into the room in terms of the particular students. But when a matter is reported to the school district involving speech, okay, and let's talk about speech that comes off campus from a social media site. That speech comes in, it was reported that somebody was concerned or alarmed by that communication. The district has an obligation to investigate. And in carrying out that investigation, the first part of that investigation is going to assess the content of that speech. What was communicated, what was intended, what was perceived, what was received by individuals, other students perhaps, or parents, or members of the community if it was put out that far. So what's the content of the speech is the first consideration, and then the second consideration would involve the context. Because if we're going to define what the content is, we have to appreciate what the context was in which that information was received. So when we look at the context, we look at the circumstances that surround that speech, that perhaps give that speech a different meaning than it otherwise would have, especially if we're dealing with images or things of that nature. So when that comes in, the school assesses all that information, and the question comes down to an analysis of reasonableness. When you consider the content coupled with the context of that communication, the school district, in investigating that, has an obligation to act reasonably. Now, reasonable can be different things to different people, but the question is, were the actions reasonable to prevent a disruption in the school? And if the school can meet that obligation, they acted appropriately. And that's basically the Tinker Standard, is what I'm laying out to you. I'm trying to, break it down into
I've read the
terms.
Tinker case.
And I'm not suggesting you don't know it, but I'm just communicating that in terms of the board's, not the board, the administration's obligations when information comes in. This board doesn't review a disciplinary matter unless there's an appeal filed or the information comes to the board. That's not what board members do.
Mr. Subsi, I think you'll recall in the last meeting, I asked the board to investigate this matter and to take discipline against the people who made the mistakes, okay? I understand what you're saying, but I've asked a very specific question, and Mr. President hasn't told me whether he'll allow me to poll the members or not to see if they agree with me. My father came from communist Hungary. He fought in the Hungarian Revolution. He came to this country, and he taught me about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, due process. Maybe you don't know it, but in the Soviet Union, they made decisions just as you're discussing, Mr. Subsi. Somebody subjectively determined whether they thought the context or the content was appropriate or not appropriate. My position is, and the position of many parents who've come to me, and we'll be presenting a letter to the board, okay, and to your office, Mr. Subsi, regarding this, that if the police department and the prosecutor's office find that a lawful activity outside of school did not present a crime nor a threat to the school or the people in the school, and did not feel that there should be a referral for mental health, What gives you, the principal, a teacher, or anybody a right to overrule what the police department said and take discipline against a student without due process? Essentially teaching that student that your agenda is right and the police department and the Constitution means nothing to them.
That's what everybody's getting out of this whole thing.
Could I respond to that, please?
You'll have your turn.
Let me respond.
Keep order.
All right, now, as a parent, okay, I got a child in school. If I have a problem with someone disciplining my kid, I'm going to the source of that problem, okay? Here's your due process. If you don't like the answer, you go up the chain of command. If it's a teacher you have a problem with, as a parent, I'm gonna go speak to the teacher. If I don't like the answer, I'm going to the principal. If I don't like the answer from the principal, I am going to the superintendent.
And in the meantime, the
And
student
after the
suspended.
superintendent, well, know what? If that was the part of it, if there was an appeal, maybe that would have been stayed or something until it went to a part. Listen, if the superintendent, if you don't like the answer from the superintendent, that's where the Board of Education hears it. Us members, us morons, as we were called.
I never said that about you. As I said, I don't make things personal.
So
and I just
listen,
think you
so
did not right.
that's your due process.
That's not due process. I'm
It's
sorry.
not? What's due process? If
Due
you don't
process
like, if
is
you
that
don't
you're
like
innocent
something,
until proven guilty
Correct.
beyond a reasonable doubt. This is
Correct.
the United States of America. This is not the Soviet Union.
listen, if I went to court on a summons and I didn't say that, I don't agree with it, I would plead guilty. If no one hears about it, no one knows I'm innocent. Unless I tell that person I'm innocent, I want to go up the chain of command, the process. That's how it works.
What you're saying doesn't even make sense to me. So I guess the answer is no, I cannot poll the board, and you will not go on record with an answer to that question. Because I offered to remove myself from that, but I want to tell you, if I don't get the answer, if the other parents who are coming to me, and we're not talking about 5 or 10 parents here, we're talking hundreds,
Frank,
maybe thousands.
Frank, if it
we
was
don't get the answer we want, there will be other recall petitions, I promise you.
Frank, if it was your child, if this was
Please
your
do.
child, okay, and the principal gave him suspension, would you go in and talk to the principal?
If a principal
Would you go in and
suspended
talk to the principal?
I'm gonna answer your
Go ahead.
question. If a principal suspended my child.
Go ahead.
For the rationale that there was here, my first call would be to a civil rights attorney, and there would be a lawsuit instituted against the school and the principal personally. That would be personal, and I promise you that would be the case.
Whatever.
It's my understanding, and having done a lot of conversations, a lot of research, that this is not a one-off. If this was a one-off situation, I would strike it up to an honest mistake. This is a pattern and a culture that this school administration, the principal, the superintendent, obviously endorsed by the school board, because the school board hasn't taken the time to take action or even acknowledge the parents' concerns here, okay? And this pattern is that it violates student civil rights, and it's teaching our children, okay, not the values that this family and this community enjoy, but the values that somebody in the school administration has. Some sort of progressive view that they got out there, okay, that's ridiculous. If the police find no cause to take action, if the police find no threat, what gives you the right to say you're smarter than the damn police department? I don't understand you.
But you're talking about a crime. There's other things that kids are,
If my kid does anything outside of school that is not a crime, it is none of your damn business. They're my control, they're my children.
Could I say something real quick? How you guys doing? This is my first year on the board. I'm just, yeah. I think the thing, like I'm letting everything, sink in and listening to both sides for sure. And I think the biggest problem, like this is not answering your question, I think the biggest problem is sometimes there's no crime until there's a crime. No one thinks that anything's gonna happen until it happens. And 2 board meetings before, we had parents here crying, about they were so scared about their kids being in the school. And I have children in the school as well. And for sure, the world is crazy nowadays, And I think ultimately, I know I'm not saying anything besides I want what's best and what's safest for our kids, and that's all I could say. As far as decisions being made, yeah, like, it just wasn't, like, we didn't hear about this until it was done, So, I mean, all I'm trying to say is, we just want what's best, man, you know? And as a parent, I understand you want your rights for your children as well. Of course, I totally understand that. You know, it saddens me to see conflict between parents and us, because ultimately we are volunteering our time, and for only one reason, just to make the district a better place for our kids and for you. Like, when I got on the board, I care about a few things, and that's the teachers, the parents, and the kids. And I feel too often these things collide. You know, the parents and the teachers aren't on the same boat, you know? So all I'm saying, man, is, you know, I'm hearing you, you know? I'm hearing what you're saying, but I hope that you could also understand our point, or everyone's point, is nothing is maliciously done. Ultimately, you have kids in the district, correct?
Yes.
We want your child's safety, you know, and I hope that everyone could get along a little better. Will we? You know, will you guys understand? I don't know. I'm trying to understand, you know. So continue.
I really appreciate that, and I gotta tell you, if the rest of the board attorney, and the superintendent at least try to understand and listen to the parents and answer our questions the way you just did, we might not ever be in the position we're in right now. Okay, but the one thing I will say is this, and I get 100% what you're saying. I want my children to be safe. I want safety for everybody. Okay, we're fighting this on a national level too.
Yes, correct.
Okay, I walk in the airport, I gotta go through all kinds of security, and I see another guy who looks just like the guys who ran planes into the World Trade Center walking right through security. Okay, so
I fly twice a month, and for some
So
reason,
you know what I'm saying?
I'm always frisked.
Okay?
Yes, correct.
But I'm here to tell you, and I can't emphasize it enough, we cannot trade our freedom for security. We cannot teach our children to that. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, okay? And I'm here to tell you, my father taught me as a little boy growing up, because he lived through the tyranny of communism. What I'm hearing from this board, you might not even realize it. Maybe you're right. Maybe there's a 100% best intentions here. But we cannot allow that to happen. We can't say that I know better what's for your children than you do, okay? You've made a comment before, and I just like to address two things, and I'll shut up and I'll go sit down, because I don't think I'm going to get the answer I want anyway, okay? You made a comment that the crime hasn't happened until it happened. I think there was a movie about that, and it was supposed to be funny. But it wasn't. It was about trying to see that a crime was going to happen and arrest somebody before they commit the crime. Again, these are things that happen in Cuba. These are things that happen in the Soviet Union, not the United States. And what you're saying to me is, well, because they're children and they go to our school, that's different. And what I'm telling you is, no, it's not. If we don't teach our children the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, we're 2 generations away from losing it. Okay? We can be safe and keep people's civil liberties. You do not have to trade one for the other. And I'd like to address something that Mr. DiGiorno said earlier, that if one of us gets on the board, we're not going to make a difference. Listen, I get it.
I didn't say that.
You said
No,
something
I didn't
to
say
that
that. I said a
Can
single
we play
board
back the
member.
tape? Mm-hmm.
A single board member.
Yeah, I know. It's just what President Trump's going through. You got to drain the swamp, and it's going to take time to drain the swamp, okay? You know, you can't have a group of people who think that they answer to nobody. If I come on the board, you're going to tell me that I'm not going to have an impact on the board. That's fine.
Did I say that?
Then we'll go for the next person and the next person.
Did I say that?
You
Don't
effectively said
don't
that.
put words into my mouth.
All right, let's, we can play back the tape, see exactly what you said.
And you're going to interpret it one way. Let me just, hold on, let me say something. If you can honestly stand up there and think that the 7 of us, or however many people, including the administration, are up here, don't care about kids' safety, right? And let me hypothetically pose this to the audience. Say nothing was done, yeah, not a threat, nothing's done, under the rug, and then God forbid, and you're gonna, holding the camera up, tell me I'm fear-mongering, right? The guy that you're calling the NRA card-carrying hypocrite, right? Right? So, God forbid, I'm trying to make a point. God forbid, please record it. God forbid some. Just sit down, please. God forbid something happened in this school district, right, where kids got hurt. You guys aren't even listening to me, and it just shows you.
We stopped listening to you when you were ignorant, rude, and when you were talking to me,
Excuse me.
say.
It is not your turn. You'll have your shot when you stand up.
And he has something to say directly to me, and I have it on camera. That's harassment, sir.
It's fine. The point I was trying to make, and I'll talk with you, Mr. Burnett, is
He
that
won't
we
address
all
it.
care about kids, right?
I believe you
We all
do.
care about kids' safety. We're all up here with the best intentions, right? My point in saying before, you can play back the tape and interpret whatever you want, is the board is a group of 7 people that works together as a team that comes to a collective decision, right? Not one person makes decisions.
I agree.
Certainly working together, one person may have an opinion that helps sway, right? So, and the reason why I said come run, how many people were here for the budget meeting 2 weeks ago? How many? Raise your hands. Sad, right? You talk about the budget, that is probably the single largest thing that's going to affect the taxpayer in this town. And there was how many people there at the meeting?
We'll talk about that in later meetings.
Great, but, you know, point taken or point made.
We let you make.
And I appreciate what you're saying, and I believe that every one of you cares about the students and about the children. I believe it 100%. I don't doubt you that for one moment. But I also believe that some of you may think that you know what's better for them. You know what's best for us. I didn't say you, I said some of you. And to me, what was the reason that perpetuated me into action, you're absolutely right. The last time I came to a board meeting was 6 years ago, okay? Before last month, okay? You guys got my attention. Now you guys being the principal, the assistant principal, the superintendent, whoever made decisions to violate students' rights. I'm a constitutionalist, okay? I was born under the Constitution of this country, and I believe firmly, and I think Mr. Subsi, when you went to law school, you believed it too, and you probably agree with me, that if we don't have that Bill of Rights, and we don't defend that Bill of Rights, that's what makes us different, we got nothing.
Sorry. Is this on? Yeah. Absolutely, the Constitution is what this country is based upon. And the one issue I have with a lot of dialogue is, again, I'm not going to go into circumstances of students, but there's an assumption in a lot of what you say, and I'm not sitting here saying you're wrong, you know, I'm not saying that at all, but there's an assumption that there was a violation. There's an assumption, and again, without having all of the information, which unfortunately I can't give it to you or to the public.
I apologize, I didn't interrupt you, but...
Yeah, but all I'm saying is, you know, the way this gets evaluated is if all the information is presented, here it all is, and we consider that. And when I said before in my statement about these issues are complicated, and you said that the Constitution is pretty simple.
It is.
Well, maybe, but there's a lot of lawyers out there that have made many, many cases. When you have to read all these cases, it gets very complicated.
Well, we know what Shakespeare said about the lawyers. No offense, because like I said, I like you. But what I'm saying is this, okay? And we're going to go round and round here, and I think we're not going to get a resolution, okay? What I'm saying, first of all, I want to say it again. For me, this isn't personal, okay? This is strictly business, okay? This is my belief that we have to have a culture for our children that is representative of the families in the community and not of any one or two people's individual ideas. I believe everybody cares about the children. I just firmly believe that some of you may think you know better, as evidenced by some of the statements that you made tonight, in my opinion. And Mr. Subsi, you know as well as I do that if I have a minor and I'm going to sue the school system as an example, I don't put that minor's name on the lawsuit. That minor's going to have 2 initials, or it's going to be John Doe. Isn't that standard practice? I could probably name a bunch of Supreme Court decisions that were done that way, correct?
Sure, we want to protect confidentiality, sure.
To protect confidentiality. And
extent
I've
we can.
offered to the board here last month and this month, please don't violate any students' confidentiality. Let's talk about students 1 and 2, which the Supreme Court of the United States recognizes does not violate anybody's confidentiality, but the Lacey Township School Board has decided on their own that that violates somebody's constitutionality.
Well, respectfully, I beg to differ in this respect. So if we're saying student 1 and 2, when I give you information about student 1 and 2 without identifying by name, I'm identifying them because we all know who we're talking about. That is still revealing confidential information regarding students, and I'm not comfortable doing that. And I look at myself as having something of a gatekeeper role to protect those interests. And again, it may not be popular because you want this information, you want to hear it. Unfortunately, no, I can't do that.
I don't really want the information. I know the information. I know you're going to say I don't, but I do.
Well, you know,
But,
you know
yeah, but I know. But what I'm looking for is the board to acknowledge, hey, a mistake was made. We're sorry. we've taken disciplinary actions against the person who did it, and we're gonna all move on. The reason why I'm upset, the reason why I'm part of a committee for a recall petition, which in my opinion, it's not singling out any one individual, it's the one of many to come, okay, is because the board is being arrogant, ignoring the concerns of the parents in the community, refusing to address them or apologize. I've asked you all to go on record with answering one question, and so far, you haven't even allowed them to do that.
Could I say something real quick?
Sure.
Yeah, so for sure, I'm not ignoring, and I don't think any of us are really ignoring. I'm definitely not. I'm telling you guys right here, if you put a recall petition on me, so be it. It is what it is. I'm volunteering my time.
You've only been here for a year, right?
No, probably 2 months.
You wouldn't be part of that. You'd be part of the change.
But what I'm saying is, I don't know how to get this, it's killing me here to see the conflict. It's boggling my mind. Because I'm gonna tell you straight up, listen, this might piss people off, it is what it is. When I first heard about what happened, I'm like, man, what the hell is this? You know, what happened? But then when I let it sink in, and then there was a shooting in Maryland the same day, it's so hard for people right now. And let me tell you something, there's so many kids that are scared. There's so many teachers that are scared. And again, I'm not undermining what you're saying, not undermining what any of you are saying. What I'm trying to do is approach this with an open mind. I'm all about freedom. I'm all about people, if there's no crime, right, there's no crime, okay? But it's so much deeper than that nowadays. It's really tough. Listen, it is, and you can't say it isn't, because kids are dying. Kids are dying, man.
Yeah,
It's really, really
I've heard
tough.
the arguments, I get it, you know.
It's tough.
And here's the thing, and I wish everybody was a little bit more level-headed like you. You seem like you're at least trying.
I'm actually the crazy one, apparently.
Well,
but I guess.
You're just trying to understand, you know, where us parents are coming from, okay? Nobody wants to put our children at risk. Everybody appreciates about the safety. But you just said it, okay? You had a wacko go out and kill people, okay? By the way, the FBI knew about that wacko and failed to act. The police knew about that wacko and failed to
Okay,
act.
so here's the thing. You tell us that we should solely rely on the police, but now you're saying the police knew and didn't act.
No, you're missing the point. I apologize. Let me
Okay,
elaborate.
okay.
Okay? That particular individual had previously broken the law, had previously been sent for a referral for mental health, had made unlawful acts prior to that act. And what I'm saying to you is you're trying to take the lawful act, and again, I'm going to say it, and you're going to say either I can't talk about confidential student matters, or I'm not going to address hypothetical questions. Well, I'm going to speak hypothetically. I don't care if anybody likes it or not, okay? What I'm saying is you can't take the lawful act of two boys going to a gun range with their father or with their friend, shooting lawful weapons in a controlled environment, learning about firearm safety, posting a picture of it online saying fun day at the range, and equate that to a wacko who they have pictures of him putting a gun to his head and 17 calls to the local police to come to his house because he's threatened violence against his family. You're putting the two of them together, and I find that very offensive, and that's probably one of the reasons why I'm so upset.
Listen,
we're trying to say
if
the
that was the
gun
case,
is the problem.
if that was the case, right, where we're saying those kids are wackos, for sure, I understand. And first of all, we're not saying anything. Like I said, we didn't make that decision.
I understand
But what I'm
that
saying,
you can act
but
on
what
that
I'm
decision.
what I'm saying is, that's not what's being said at all. Like, I know for sure, I don't think those, I don't know those children to say that they're crazy kids, but I could also say that not every single person that goes and shoots up a school shows signs 100% of the time. Now,
I beg to differ with you on that.
Yeah, but
I've seen the
do you know
case
every
studies
single
on it.
case,
Can I
though?
say something, Mr.
Yeah,
Horvath?
I've seen the case studies on it.
Mr. Horvath, Dave Saletti,
Yes.
Board of Ed, 2 years. I just had FBI training on homegrown violent extremists the other day. And what they told us is there is no pattern. You can't pick a certain person. You can't say because these kids were straight A students, they wouldn't do anything. Just like you couldn't say, well, I take my kid to the gun range and we learn about gun safety. The Newtown shooter in Newtown, Connecticut, his mother took him to the range every Saturday, shared, gun safety with him. What'd he do? He killed a bunch of little kids.
The Newtown shooter
He what?
he went off meds.
Okay, but did he
was
shoot?
also
He shot.
medicated by the school district with Ritalin.
But did anybody know? Did anybody say, hey, this kid,
Yeah, they did.
they knew he was gonna go crazy?
Yes, there were warnings about him. That
There's
kid
more
has a
than-
serious mental health record, okay? So,
I know he was autistic, but what I'm trying to tell you is, you can't use that these kids, these individuals, were at a gun range, they're straight A students, therefore, they were learning gun safety, that they won't commit a violent crime. You can't say that.
you can't, you're right. You know what?
And we're in
you
the
can't say that
position.
I'm not gonna go out and kill somebody right now.
Absolutely, we're in the
Who's
position.
gonna arrest me for it?
We're in the position
Before I
of
did.
making the entire school district safe. That's what we're working on. We're taking money for safety vestibules, so we can't let people in the schools. We have to look at everything.
I understand that.
And all you're concerned with is if these boys' rights were taken away from them or not. Personally,
Excuse me, that's not all I'm concerned with, I want you to know that.
listen,
Can anybody else?
can I ask you, what's that?
Can anybody else ever speak ever? You've taken a lot of time.
I have?
No, I have, I'll relinquish the mic.
Okay. Are you suggesting to us that every time we discipline a student, we check with the police first?
No, what I'm suggesting to you.
Because there's rules that the kids have to follow,
I
correct?
understand, 100%.
And if one of those rules were broken, they're disciplined, correct?
Yeah, let me say one thing. and I'm
If
gonna
you
relinquish
don't know
mic.
the rule, we can't tell you is what we're trying to tell you, but trust us, there was a rule.
Please, let me just say one thing and I'll relinquish the mic.
Hey,
Right,
if
I've
anybody
spoken
wants
too
to
long.
have a discussion with me after the meeting, wait, I will discuss with you civilly, but I will not discuss the case.
How about we discuss it with the parents of the kids that are involved? How about that?
How about we intimidate them? That's what I heard.
Because no
Nobody
one,
was
if
intimidated.
I was the parent,
They
I'd
could
tell
have
you to
released
put
those
out.
photos, the parents could have released the photos, and everyone on Lacey Chatter could have said, hey, oh, wait a minute, this isn't what I thought it was.
Let me say one thing and
Right?
I want to.
I'll tell you what was broken, so if I get fired, I get fired, I don't know. What basically what it was, the week before, it was clearly stated that if anything is posted on social media that disrupts the peace of mind of students or teachers in this heightened sense of sensitivity, there will be disciplinary action. That's what was.
You know what we get out of that? This is what we get out of that.
Excuse me.
Yo, we get that no matter what.
Could you have your turn, sir?
I
Come
don't
on.
want my turn. I got
Well,
one
then,
thing to say.
listen,
I got
don't.
one thing to say.
Put it back on the chatter.
Put it back on the chatter?
I'd like to finish my statement and I'll walk away.
And then you can speak. Listen, when he's done, you can speak.
I'm gonna just say two things, okay, and I'm done, because we're not gonna get anywhere here, I can see it. First of all, I appreciate both these two gentlemen's candor and willingness to speak, and I'd love to speak to you more about this afterwards, okay?
Feel free.
I'm gonna ask you to do one thing for me, the two of you especially, anybody, please, but the two of you especially. I'm sure there's a tape of this, play it back and listen to yourself. And listen to what you said as an American, okay? Putting the safety of the children out there, 100%. But also listen to what you said. And let me tell you what my thought process on it is. Yes, there has to be rules, there has to be discipline. My contention is if anything occurs outside of school that is not a crime and is not a threat, it is not the responsibility nor the right of the school administrator, principal, district, what have you, to get involved in that and take action. And I think we have to have rules for everybody, and that's what the Constitution does. And I believe, in my opinion, Mr. Subsi might not agree with me, but I don't think you have to be a lawyer to talk about the Constitution and have an agreement on it.
You don't. I'll just add this last comment to you, Frank. I think that's where we disagree, because you're suggesting that if the police don't see there's a threat, there's nothing for the school to do. And I respectfully beg to differ you in that regard, because the school's obligations are a little different than what the police's obligations are.
But the school's obligations end at those front doors unless there's a threat. And that's what the Stinker case said, too.
Well,
And you know it, and I know it.
The law is the
Okay?
law, and again, we can have reasonable people can have reasonable differences of opinion, but that's where we disagree.
And you're right, the parents would have the final say in it. I'm just here to defend my child and what may or may not happen.
Listen, let him talk. I'll explain myself at my
And I'd be
comments.
willing to speak to any of these privately if you'd like to speak. Sure.
First Amendment rights.
name is John Romalia. I live at 309 Bayside East. And this is deja vu for me, because 13 years ago, my son went to this high school. And he was on a paintball team, right? And so he was competing across all of New England. And he's in class one day, and he's talking to his friend on the paintball team, and he says, "Did you get the gun?" Right? And the teacher heard. So what happened was, Mr. Dansky, close friend of mine, by the way, at the time he was the principal of the high school, suspended my son, suspended him from school. So I did exactly what you suggested. I called up the principal of the school. I went into the school, right? And they had a no tolerance program, a zero tolerance program at the time, because there's just been a horrific shooting. The one out, you know, the first one, what was the name of it? Columbine. It was Columbine shooting, right? And so I came in and I spoke to Principal Adamski, and they had, like you had just mentioned, a broadcast statement saying that this is a zero tolerance program. Do not talk this stuff up right now. Everybody's on eggshells. Don't do it. So what Mike Adamski did was he came to a middle ground solution. He basically let my son do his homework. He knew he violated the zero tolerance program. He knew he did it. And that was fine with me. You know, I went there. I know you're acting in good faith. And personally, for me, as a U.S. citizen that believes in the First Amendment, I say, you act in my best interest every time. You act in my son's best interest, whether you're backed up by some policy or something that's written in a handbook or whatever it is. You look out for me. You look out for my son. You look out for my daughter. And you have my vote on that. And I am a citizen. I don't have a kid in school anymore. My kids are gone. They grew up here and they graduated from here, both. And I'm totally, you're in a King Solomon moment. What do? You know, do you sit there and do nothing, or do you act? So you have my vote to act, and on behalf of the safety of any child that goes to school in this township, and I'll back you up 100% on that. But I want to switch topics on you. I talked about my son Matthew Charles Ronaldo. Matthew's gone. Matthew succumbed to the heroin addiction that we went through, the worst years in Lacey, and you guys, you know about this. And I credit board members, Lacey task force members, everybody that's trying to do everything they can all the time to make life better for our kids and for our citizens here in Lacey. But I was very disturbed about something that happened. I had to put another notch in the column, you know, that says there's another person I know that just lost a child. And at the Wawa on Forked River, I go to Richard's Barbershop down in Waretown, and Marie, who cuts hair there, just lost her son last Sunday. Another dead one in the parking lot. He was actually in the bathroom at Wawa. So what's interesting is that I didn't see anything about this anywhere. I didn't see anything. You know, my wife does the Lacey Chat, you know, so she's hooked up that way. And we didn't hear anything, and I go to the barber, and I said, "Where's Marie?" And her son's dead, right? So I want you guys to keep focused on what you're doing, but I don't want you to take your eye off the ball. And the ball is, people are still dying from heroin. People are still dying from alcohol. We have to put the joy back in young people's lives. And when I sat up in my seat and I watched you give accolades to all those young children, the smiles and the beams that I saw coming from my face proved to me one thing that's for sure. This school is doing a good job. Those kids were joyful, they were happy, they were being recognized. This is the answer to the problems that face us. Everybody needs to live a happier life. And you're absolutely right, if Frank is still in the house somewhere, you know, this is what's dividing America. These simple things are like separating us right now, and they're pitting us against each other. And we need to find a common dialogue to come together and address, target what is really the problems, and open up communication lines and mitigate, you know, the risk and try to solve problems with an open heart and understand that people could disagree, but, you know, they can still work out a problem together. And that's really what I gotta say. Don't take your eye off heroin. Please do not take your eye off heroin. And it's still alive in our township. Don't ever think it's gone. It's here. It's happening right now. Somebody's eye someplace right now, Lacey. So that's all I got. And I just want to say thank you for doing your best to protect young people in the Lacey school system. Better to take action than to do nothing. That's what I say.
We're so sorry for your loss.
Sorry, we'll never cover it.
I know.
I'm running to the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back.
Before we do any seconds, I want to make sure everybody gets a chance first.
I was just going to address one thing real quick, a minute, and I already talked to some of the other people who wanted to talk, and they were fine with me going.
I'd like to hear a comment from the gentleman behind it. He wanted to say something before.
You can come on down.
Didn't forget about you. I just don't like everyone talking over everybody, so.
I'm sorry, I was just getting a little frustrated.
That's okay. Got your time now.
Understood.
I don't do well talking in front of people.
We're all from the same town here, so.
I don't have anything against anybody here. I don't know anyone. With that being said, sitting up there and listening to Frank and other people speak and listening to you speak, all I keep hearing is, and don't get me wrong, I have kids in this district, and I want them to be just as safe. I called the assistant principal and I asked him why nothing has been implemented in these schools. Why that door over there is held open with a carpet. I've asked him. I called him personally and talked to him. So don't think for a second, as a firearm owner and as a constitutionalist, I don't want safety for my kids, because I do. With that being said, what I hear coming from a lot of you up here is you need to give up your freedom for liberty. Or you need to give up your liberty for freedom. You know what I'm trying to say. That's what you want to happen. Nobody can, you can't have a video on Facebook because it's going to offend a parent, so you have to act to save that parent. That's not right. It's just not. I understood what Tom was saying. Tom's trying to see both sides of the spectrum. You got to be careful on how you implement things. There's two types of people here. You have those who are offended by firearms, and you have those who use them as a hobby, and their kids are doing it with the parents. So you got to be careful how you do this. It's not a one-sided debate. It's not, hey, somebody got offended, so right away you got to give up your liberty. It can't work that way. And I think I said this at the other meeting. And I think what Frank is trying to say is, when it comes to something that's frightening people, or if it's firearms related, maybe your policy should be to go through the police department first and let them determine whether or not that poses a serious threat. Now, are you going to stop everybody that's going to do a shooting if the police determine that he's not a serious threat? No. You don't know what anybody's going to do. And until, we start detaining people before they're going to commit a crime, you're never going to know. And so that's where I think we're all getting frustrated at the fact that you're making decisions trying to appease everybody else. And in turn, you're leaving the other individuals out to pasture. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We understand what you're saying.
So I want to respond. I didn't get your name.
I'm sorry, Jason Buteau, Lacey Road, Family Lake.
Jason Craig Wheeler, nice to meet you. I just want to point out, very well spoken, for somebody who doesn't like to get out front, but I totally agree with you. And you made a connection there to something that's a little bit bigger than just this room, because our nation is polarized right now. It is.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if portrait. We do not want to be polarized. We have to find the middle balance between safety and rights. And what has to happen is this cordial discussion right here. So I had already had a plan. I was hoping that between the last meeting and this meeting, somebody would have reached out to me, or I would have thought of who's the person like you that wants to sit down and talk. Because I would love to sit down with about 10 people. 10 people from different facets of our community, and maybe a couple of administrators and teachers, and talk about the issues, and portray scenarios, and talk about policy, and review 18A and 6A that we follow in regard to code of conduct and all those things. Because until we can have that's a common ground, we can't take what you see, and we're not arguing the fact that your perception is accurate. What we're doing is we have to have a balance between safety, rights, and it's getting more and more heated. I don't want to be on one side or the other. I want to be in the middle, but the middle's very hot, very hot. But I want to sit down with a group, whether there be a board member on or not, but I think it's time to do that, because every month we can't do this. I want to do work between and say, look, I know there was groups and organizations, the Pistol Club, and different, like, they want to talk about those things. I'm like, let's talk about something. I would love to go to the State Board of Education and to the Department of Ed and say, look at this, what we came up with is a morphing of social media and rights and things like that based off scenarios that we could play out forever, because it can get endless. But until we sit down and talk face to face and are rational and get, you know what, I don't have a vendetta, I don't have an issue, I don't come here with an agenda other than to make it better. I want to solve the problem. So just from your comments, rational comments, going up there and speaking that way, to me, that was the beginning. And Frank, if he's still here, and the guys, I will sit and talk for hours and rip policy apart and look at things and recommend things to lawyers and to boards of ed above us, to be honest, because we can't control all of that, but the discussion is bigger than us, and people are so polarized that sometimes they can't, they need to sit and talk. So I'm willing to do that. My email's on there. The only emails I got were all bad emails, so hopefully I get an email like everybody wants to sit down and meet and talk. But I would rather get a group together and solve a problem, or attempt to solve a problem, than to keep, we're spinning now. But
I wouldn't have a problem being a part of that group.
Okay.
I mean, and I'm sure there's.
Only because I get what you're saying. I'm not, and this.
I know it's a tough area. I mean, but we're living in an age now where, I mean, our governor is not meeting with, he's only meeting with the side that he
I want to sit down and
with
meet
every day. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is where I'm sitting up there and I'm getting frustrated because you guys are portraying, you're catering to a specific side to make people happy. And I don't like that. That's not how the Republic
I think
works.
digging into having great discussion and scenario-driven discussions and looking at policy and law that we're somewhat obliged to will give us both a good reasoning, because I think you bring up a good point. Just so you know, you struck a chord, you're very on point, and I'd rather do that than, oops, excuse me, than just blow up the internet and everybody hates everybody and, you know, we're pitting against, I have no time for that. You don't have time for that, so
And
my door is open.
I agree, and in fact, Mr. Horvath, with a V, Horvath said something before. You said something that I kind of frowned because I wasn't sure where you were coming, something, a comment about something you didn't like in the high school, some things that you didn't like. I forget what you said, but I thought then, why can't we just sit down and meet as a small group and go over and I think that's an excellent idea, Mr. Wigley.
In a previous life experience, we developed what was called a Human Relations Committee. And the Human Relations Committee brought in policy. They talked about law. They broke some of the things down that were polarizing the community. And where the community I was in, it was extreme racial bias. And there was a lot of things going on, and it was really bad, and people were getting beat up, and words were flying. It got really bad. It took months to get people to sit down and understand where people were coming from. I don't think, this community, I could tell the passion. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to beat people up. I don't want to make things difficult for people, but I also have to have an understanding that rational discussion, a good civil discourse, and then we can start to move forward. Because I think there is solutions bigger than Lacey in regard to this, because it is happening, not to say that we're one of a kind, but it's frequently happening and occurring. And until it gets addressed on a larger scale, we're not gonna have an answer, so.
It's happening all over the
Yeah,
United States.
so I would love to be on the forefront of trying to come up with some type of solution or understanding, especially for educating our students from K through 12, so that we can just move forward. Because right now, we're not, and I need to move forward, because my attention spans can get really short beating each other up.
Well,
So
I'm serious about me,
yeah.
so,
I'm-
you know, however you want to
My,
get through it, if you want me to send you an email, I'll
Yeah,
send you an email.
shoot me an email. It'll be a good email, invitation to sit and talk.
All right.
I got the other ones that are beating me up, but I would love to. I'd love to do that. All right?
Oh, one more quick second. We do have the other side of the room. Hold on a second before you go. I said we're going to work our way across, and then you can have your second turn. So we're going to keep going. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Anybody else? On the right side of the...
He was fine with me going first, because I'm not gonna take very long.
She's got children, I believe, she has to take off, take care
That's
of.
okay, that's okay. Mr. Subsidy's getting paid $150 an hour to sit here, so.
That's what happens when you work, you get paid. I said when you work, you get
Out
paid.
of Ocean View, New Jersey.
That's all I said.
Thanks for coming up, John.
When I first came here, it was about the Second Amendment and the Facebook or the social media things. But as I talked to some of the parents, and I listened to this board, I heard what these people were saying. It just happened with Mr. Wigley. I think it finally, people were hearing what the people were saying, not hiding behind, we can't talk about anything. No, not that, anything. So, I'm sorry, I have a prepared statement. I'm going to try and edit it because it was kind of nasty, but it brings up some points. You know, we need solutions. And one of the things that just becomes very obvious to me is how discipline is dispensed with in the school system. It may not be the right way. Just because it's always been done that way, we're looking at a dynamic situation that has changed over the last 15 or 20 years. Maybe we need to revisit that. Maybe there needs to be a disciplinary committee so that this isn't taken on by one teacher or one principal, but that maybe there's even a community member involved with it. We need to look at these things, don't we?
Just to respond to that real quick, one of the things Craig and I, and we've all been kind of talking about this, you said somebody involved in the community. We've had conversations about putting together a committee that we call the safety committee that would not only involve folks from the board, administration, but also folks from the town. But then with the social media phenomenon being new and changing every day, like you say, dynamic, we're talking about trying to include districts around us too, so that everybody can learn from each other's experiences, mistakes, successes, those sorts of things. Well, that was one of the things. We don't, this conversation, like even though we go home from here, we talk nonstop. I own a business and I haven't gotten anything done in weeks. So the folks that work for me are wondering where I've been and what I've been doing. But this is what we've been talking about for weeks now. And we're trying to find ways to improve it. We will, I'm sure we will. So I just wanted to throw that little tidbit.
And I'm not, the other thing is, everybody mentions the children. But I don't think we're defining which children or what children are either being offended, disrupted, or disrupted. Again, that's why I say maybe a committee or some way of reviewing this. And social media is certainly one that can be disruptive to the school setting. I also feel that outside of the school setting, it's pretty hard to extend the school's supervision. And
in all honesty too, sir, we don't have any interest in being outside the school. Sometimes it creeps in, sometimes the
it
outside
seems like
creeps
it
in.
has, and it reared its ugly head in a way that maybe nobody intended. I don't think they did, but it's created a stink over the whole state, actually over the country, if you don't know it. You know, the bully, they have to be dealt with. I think everybody here agrees with that. But the unintentional mistake, it may not even be understood. And then maybe they did understand. But we're not going to talk about particular incidents. We need to look at what the school system is looking at and what they're doing. And are they or the teachers there acting accordingly? It's policy. It's not those students or that incident. You know, Mr. Wigley mentioned about being in school with a gun in it. And it seemed to me like you were very uncomfortable.
I was assistant principal. One of our deans got a loaded revolver off a student who was upset with his girlfriend in a stairwell. And the upsetting part is that at the time we didn't know what his intention was going to be, but he came with a loaded gun. And it was, at that time, you know, that was 2006, so it was a while ago. The one that was probably most alarming was the M1 rifle coming up the lawn of the school because it was a ROTC rifle, and the panic and the 911 calls and that. So your adrenaline rushes, you train, you're ready for those things. But I'm not afraid of guns. I was worried about the safety of the students. So that's my, not fear, but that's always my concern. So I do go to bed at night thinking about is tomorrow the day.
I don't know.
You know, just so you know, like I'm not a fear monger. I'm not afraid. I'm really not afraid of anything. I don't think. Other than my father still, he's 82. But,
I know. I've had guns point.
Just so you know.
Point blank at my face.
Right.
So I lived with that stuff. It's not good. It's not a great feeling. And it shouldn't happen in the school system. I realize that. But we had a problem. It created 9/11. We had a hijacking problem. There was a solution. Have any planes been hijacked in the last 10 or 15 years? How did they solve this problem? Does anybody here know?
Security. Security.
No, it wasn't the security. They blocked the entry to the cockpit. You can't get there. If you can't get into the school, it's entry control. I do not disagree with the security scans, sweeps, the fact that they even did background checks of certain people that were flying, or they had a database. But these are solutions that can be done at the front door of the school that would make this school almost impenetrable.
We are
I'm not
working on
saying it can't be done, that it can't be defeated, but the chances are probably much greater that there would be a student killed from drunk driving or drugs within this school system than within the whole state of New Jersey from gun violence of the type we're worried about. Yet we're panicking about social media, possible gun use. And we're more concerned about that, or at least it seems like the reaction is way more about something that is a hot topic than the real needs and safety of our students.
Well, regarding security, without giving up too much because we don't want to say too much, that's probably one of our number one focuses right now.
Well, I'd be more than happy to sit in with you people when you want to look into that or discuss maybe the gun issues. It's important, and I realize your best interest, or most of your people are best interest there. I did have a couple of questions that I'm going to try and edit them to just get to some of the points because, you know, Mr. Stotsy, you've been pretty much saying you can't comment on anything. And the board has started to actually come around to not specifically a situation, but at least speaking to us, that would have made this whole situation a lot better. At least, I think most people would feel that way. Some people have even said they would gladly leave without complaining.
I think a public discourse is a good thing, and certainly, some of the comments you're hearing tonight, wanting to meet with people and have committees. I mean, I think, what happened was, certainly it was an unfortunate meeting last month. There was a lot of people that were upset, and they came forward, and it came out. And, sometimes, you start talking about things, and maybe there's a way to reach common ground, and to realize that maybe what we thought was this big difference really wasn't such a big difference after all. That's the hope of discussing. That's why communication is so important.
Well, there's been some, troubling revelations too. Some of them been through the overt requests that maybe are being taken out of context, but not really knowing. I was going to ask, you represent the board, and you're an attorney, correct?
Sure.
So you're bound by a certain code of ethics.
Sure.
And you can't, discuss issues that relate to an individual. You can certainly talk about the broader picture of how the school board interacts with the school and how the school carries out certain procedures. And in that sense, who is responsible for the policies that seem to have created these problems? Or the public discourse over policy?
The policies, there's a process. In terms of policies, there's policy committees that are formed, and policies aren't just created, in a vacuum. Policies are created, there's consideration as to what policies are being created throughout the state. And those policies being created throughout the state are considered as this board or any other board implements policy and utilizes policy. So, there are services that school boards use, whether it be Lacey or other districts, that they may subscribe to receive information in terms of, let's stay current with the policy because it changes. It's a dynamic thing where you have to stay current with the policy to make sure it's current based on current times and circumstances and factors. Policy isn't this thing that's just created. And what I will say about policies, and without any hesitation, reasonable people could debate and argue with words and say, well, I don't like those words. But when a policy is created, what you're really looking at is what is the intent behind that policy? What is intended to be done? What does that policy stand for? What does it mean? And I think when you look at the intent behind all these policies was for proper purposes. So again, we can discuss any particular policy or any particular issue, but reasonable minds, respectfully, I think have a hard time saying that the intent was wrong. They may argue that the words, well, I didn't like that word, or I didn't like that phrase, that clause, or how that clause matches up to the rest of the language. But, the intent was not malicious of any of these policies.
Okay, I'll rephrase myself then. How did the student handbook rules come about, and who was responsible for the wording that was used?
Well, the one thing I'll say about the student handbook, language, that was language that was in the handbook, and at the beginning of last meeting, I actually read a statement about it, where when you read the language, when you take apart that policy and the second half of it, it doesn't sound so good. But when you read it in conjunction with the other language that it's in accordance with, the safety committee that came out of the Columbine shootings and these other laws, when you read that all together, basically what that language was conveying was if a person commits a crime with a gun, if a person brings a gun to school, or acts in such a way where there's, some sort of gun, either criminal gun issue or on grounds, on campus gun issue, that person will be disciplined. I know the interpretation, when you read the second half of that policy, it doesn't sound like that.
That was pretty plain.
Again, when you read the first half coupled with the second half, I'm telling you, you have to read them both together, but there's a reason why that language was changed. And the reason why that language was changed is exactly your reaction towards it, because, gee, it doesn't sound good. You know, so it was changed to eliminate that.
Okay, but we're not gonna comment on who was responsible or how it actually happened. It doesn't matter. Is that what you're telling me?
Handbook, how long ago was the handbook even made? I mean, I don't even, it was clearly before us, so.
We can get you that answer. Maybe just not tonight, knowing off the top of your
Okay,
head.
well-
Well, if you email us, we'll get you that answer.
To enlighten it, how long has your firm been around, Mr. Saxey? How long has your firm been representing the Lacey School Board?
Since 1987.
Okay. Possibly would you assume that it happened during that period of time?
I would think you could assume that, sure.
Was your firm at any point asked to review this? Did you know of?
Well, I would have to look into that. I, didn't research that issue coming here tonight and couldn't give you an answer at this time, that's for sure.
It just seems to me that the handbook or the acknowledgement of the handbook is almost a legal contract between the student and the school. Thoughts?
The handbook is a document that it says what it says. It's something the student signs, sure. It says I'm obligated to act in accordance with the handbook, sure.
Okay, well, it seems since it's distributed every year and laws do change, there should have been a review yearly of this. Makes sense, it just maybe moving forward.
I do believe, isn't it, it
Yes,
is reviewed every year, isn't it?
Yes, every year the handbook is reviewed, and the policy part of it, the reflection there. So what is going to occur, if anything that has to do to deal with firearms, is going to refer directly just to the policy.
No, let's not
Right.
even worry about firearms.
But
I'm
the
actually
policy.
talking about the more deep issue of constitutional protections and equal protection, maybe even USC type, 18. There's some concerns. Maybe we are actually stepping into the family life. Maybe we're discriminating against people's beliefs. Really, it's going to take some reflection from all of us. And not just the school board. I think this comes to being a culture that may exist within the school, but maybe a little bit against certain people or beliefs. Not intentionally. But you know what? We all have prejudice. We don't know it sometimes. What's the first thing that most people say? They're pretty, they're good looking, or they're ugly, or they're a different race, or they're a different religion. Wear a funny thing on the top of their head. We can't avoid noticing these things. And I'm sure the same thing happens at, my kid Hunter, he wore a Trump shirt to school, or, these may be things that are disruptive or considering to be disruptive by teachers. I think they need a handbook too. I taught in public schools for a while. I know that there's a particular culture within most of education that's, let's say, liberal. I'm not going to say that's wrong or right, but it's certainly different than the average citizen in this township. Last meeting, Mr. Wiggly, you opened with the words George Washington. I'm not sure if that wasn't a little bit self-serving at the time, but I do appreciate your comments tonight.
I like this supposed to go.
Well, getting to the point of why I'm here. Yes, do you believe in the United States of America? Mr. President, can I ask Mr. Wiggly these questions?
Do you believe in the United States of America?
Absolutely.
Great.
I said yes.
Don't you believe in our democracy?
Yes.
The Constitution. And as others have said, isn't the Constitution the law of the land? We don't get to pick and choose what we like to throw out the baby with the bathwater. Sorry, I meant throw out the students' futures and spirit. You know, the great American President Lincoln reiterated the principles of human equity espoused by the Declaration of Independence in his Gettysburg Address. You do still teach that in school, don't you?
US 1, US 2. It's either in US 1 or US 2.
Okay.
US 2.
Now, remember these words? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You know who wrote them?
Thomas Jefferson.
Thank you. It was Thomas Jefferson. And of course, you know what they are from. The Constitution of the United States. You know that the amendments, are they still taught? I hope so. Here's one we need to revisit, and this applies here, I believe, very much. Article 14, Section 1. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction, therefore, are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, or deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection under the laws. I think we tried to make this case that students aren't people, that they aren't protected. I submit to you that they indeed are protected under the 14th. And that maybe there was an overreach of what should be their rights. This is why we need to have this discussion. And I'm more than happy to come to the meeting.
It's time, and rather than have an open discussion.
Before I came to and heard you, I was actually going to ask some questions about the relationship with the board and Mr. Subsidy, whether it was appropriate because of the possible legal actions for him to still be sitting there because of maybe a conflict. But I'm much happier now. I was even going to say I didn't know whether you should be sitting on the board while defending acts of the administration or its employees. I think we can come to some common. I think the citizens can come to common ground.
We have
I'm
to.
encouraged.
We have to. We don't have an option.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Am I allowed to speak now?
Because you have to leave?
I'm going to wait. Go ahead. I'm going to wait. I have to use the restroom. I'm sorry.
I can wait if you need.
Can you wait 2 minutes?
Go ahead.
Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, 2-minute recess. We'll be right back.
Is this one of those where he's got the mic on? We can cut it later. Was that Leslie Nielsen, Name of God? It's up to Lytle. I'm stealing my song. No, just kidding. I feel so bad. I always, I didn't realize that's 9 o'clock, but I usually will say if it exceeds 9 o'clock, the kid can go. You know, I never hold a kid past 9 o'clock when they have school the next day.
For one, you helped me out by letting me finish my project.
Oh, no sweat.
2, I need the hours anyway.
Right, so you're the
I'm
bonus.
stuck in.
Ching, 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 ching.
I just need to stand up.
I know, I need to like sleep for a minute. You just heard my chair creak. Hold on.
Actually,
Gonna turn this on for a bit. No, this is a USB-C cable. There was somebody sitting here, and then they were sitting on that.
That's why now, all good.
Probably one.
All right, back at it.
Are you ready?
I didn't stop over there. You got left on to it.
So I'm going to reiterate what a couple other people have said, that we don't have anything personal against any one of you, just as we don't expect you have anything personal against any one of us. But we have repeatedly begged you for an apology for the way that this one incident was handled. And now all of a sudden you're ready to speak to us, or maybe you don't want me on the committee, which I would be happy to be on the committee. But you still cannot recognize that what was done was wrong, and you can't admit that apology should be given to all of us. We're not asking for an apology just to that one family, those two families. It's to all of us. Because if I could just address Mr. DeBlas, because he was not able to be at the last meeting. I just want to make one point to you, sir. I respect you very much for what you do for our children in this community. There are a lot of children who don't know how to defend themselves. And your business teaches them how to be confident, how to keep their cool, and how to use things only when absolutely necessary. And I understand that every single one of you on the board wants what's safest for the rest of the students and all the students of this community, just as every single one of us parents do. Nobody wants to come home to get the phone call that our child was shot. But this is not just about guns either. We need to, you know, everybody's talking about gun. Forget the word gun, because as Mr. DeBlas can attest to, in his business where he teaches these children to defend themselves, they use knives, they use swords, they use all kinds of pieces of equipment.
I'm sorry, I'm not interrupting. We're not karate, we're jujitsu.
Okay,
No,
so
seriously.
I apologize.
I I understand
But
your
it's
point.
along the same lines. It's just a piece of equipment. So when we're talking about a gun, it's no different than, my apologies, karate, kumsung, whatever it is, with knives and swords, wooden, metal. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. We want what's safest for our kids, but we do not want you to parent our kids. We do not. If there was an issue with this particular that started all of this, we would have been so much happier as a community if you would have sat down with the parents who, I might just add, I'm not going to give any specifics, but because of their situation in the community, were very intimidated because they're afraid of retaliation because of their position in the community. That's as far as I'm going to put it. So they're afraid of your retaliation if they speak up to you, if they come to your office. So think about that for a moment too. I work full time. I'm an engineer for a company that saves lives every day. We make the evacuation slides and slide rafts that you hope you never have to use in an emergency landing. Okay? I'm an engineer. I solve problems every day. That's my job, is to solve problems. Nothing but solve problems. And I would be more than happy to help you guys solve this problem with the rest of the community who really gives a flying you know what. But you need to really reflect, as others have said, and you need to understand that what happened was wrong. And all we're asking you to do is publicly admit that it was wrong. We could, obviously, some people are changing their mind now, which is a good thing, but we could move forward with this if you'd work together with us. But we still need you to admit that what was done was wrong, and that that's not going to just be, you're not just going to jump every time something happens. Yeah, there's a lot of shootings going on in this country right now. A lot. And I'll be damn well that if anyone, especially this school board and my kids' teachers, are going to try and restrict and intimidate my children from being able to go to the range and learn how to properly defend themselves and be proud of it and post it online. People who shoot competitively, all these parents are reaching out to me. Do you realize, I just want to ask you this, because I don't know if you guys realize, I know you've been following, Google has been sending you every time you get, Mr. Wigley's name or Lacey Township's name. I know you're getting all of that. But do you realize that on a national level, that you guys were on the Ben Shapiro show and you were this community was spoken about in a negative way? You think any of us want the negative attention?
Mrs. Durant, can I just stop you for a second?
Just one more thing. I was also personally sought out by. You say you want us to come to you, but you completely disrespected us last time, and Mr. Subsi, I do appreciate your apology for that. But I was sought out by Fox and Friends, and I was sought out by The Waters Show with Jesse Waters. And at any time, all I have to do is make that call, and they're going to send a car for me and whoever else I want to bring with me. And they're going to drive me to their studio, and they're going to interview me live on national television. So either we can make this positive, or we can go the route we're going now. We've been saying it's up to you guys. We've been asking you to apologize and to say that you will work on getting things done. Mr. Saletti, I'm sorry to
Mr.
cut you
Saletti,
off.
I just want to ask you, you're telling us that we owe you an apology, and we're wrong. Is that opinion or fact?
Fact.
It's your opinion.
But you guys have stated that there was no crime committed. There was
Nobody
no...
stated that.
Yeah, you did.
What we said was what we could say. And if you knew, and you were sitting here with the rest of us and had the same information that we have, your opinion would be different than the one you have standing there. And I'm not...
Because some parents
This
and
is
some
what's gonna
children
happen.
are upset. They're going to be upset every day in this
That's not
country.
what it is. That's not what it is. Okay? We can't tell you what policy or code was broken because
But
you're
how are we
speaking about the people.
How are we supposed to teach our kids not to break that policy in the future,
I
then if
think-
you can't tell
I-
us what was broken?
I think everybody knows which one it is.
Nobody is clear as to what policy was broken.
But we
There is
can't
not
come
one
right out
person
and
in
say it
this
is what we're
community.
trying to tell you. But what I am telling you is, everybody has an opinion in this world. An opinion. It doesn't
And
make
you're
it fact.
entitled to that opinion.
Absolutely, but it doesn't make it a fact. Okay? I don't have a problem, an issue with guns at all. My dad was an NRA member, so was my brother. I have no issues with guns. What happened here, and what happened after the posts, was done based on safety for the school district. That's all it was. So
But why didn't you
say
address
here,
it with the parents of the children
you
if
don't
there
want
was
to
no
believe
threat?
that. You don't want to believe
No,
that.
we do want to believe it, but why did you not address it with the parents of the children if there was no threat?
I'm
Why did
pretty
you
sure
guys take
that the parents met with the administration
those
and we're
parents did
told
not
what
agree?
happened, and we're told what law they broke or rule they broke. I'm sure they know it. I'm 100% sure they know it. And you're gonna come here and say, you don't know it, so they don't know it? They know
You're
it.
100% sure of that, Mr.
Yes, I
Solani?
am.
Okay.
Yes. How would they be able to be disciplined without being told what they did? How?
Because
We
some
have
of the
codes of
parents are
conduct.
afraid of
That's
retaliation.
not true.
Okay.
All right, so the parents just said, well, what'd my kid do? And we said, you're just gonna get detention? We didn't tell them why? We didn't show them the reason?
But how are we supposed to parent our kids from not doing that in the future if you don't tell us what the problem is?
Read the code of
We
conduct.
need to know,
Listen
we
to me.
have read it, and you guys are telling us there's gray areas, there's this, there's that. We have read it
What we're
multiple
telling you
times.
is, and what I'm telling you is this, your opinion and my opinion are different, and we both believe it, but it doesn't make it fact. It doesn't, does not make it factual, it's just an opinion.
Okay, so are you saying that the way everything was handled was absolutely properly handled? Are you saying that? Are you agreeing that
That
it was
is
properly
absolutely
handled?
what I'm saying, yes, that's absolutely what I'm saying.
Oh, okay, well, that's exactly why.
That's why we're gonna sit down
Could
and talk.
could I say one thing? First of all, I'm super impressed that you're an engineer. I can't even do like basic multiplication. Secondly,
Sorry, I'm not here to impress you, but
I know,
thank you.
well, I was just giving you a compliment.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I saw you
Thank
smile.
you.
You're welcome. Secondly, I think that is what we are trying to do is sit down and talk and figure out better ways to handle the entire situation in the future. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's ultimately like what the plan is, you know, like for everybody to come together and work together to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. It's not like we're sitting here saying, nope, it is what it is, go home, we don't care if you're unhappy. It's not the case at all. We want you to be, I know I want you to be happy, we want you to be happy, you know? And I think that's why everybody wants to meet and
We're not
figure
even
out.
asking for you to make us happy, we're just trying to figure out a solution.
Well, exactly, well, that's what we're trying to do.
Actually, what you're trying to do is force an apology out of us. But what we're trying to tell you is we're gonna meet, and we're gonna try and hammer this out, and we're gonna talk, and we're gonna tell you our side without discussing the students. And maybe you'll understand. And listen, and you can talk about all of your issues, and we'll listen. That's what we're saying.
But you
what I'm
have
trying
said
to
that
tell
you
you
would
is,
repeat
just
what was
because
done.
you believe your opinion does not make it fact. And the same here.
What crime was broken? That's all we want to know. You don't have to tell us who, when, why.
We all know who.
Just tell me, I don't know.
I'll tell you what.
I'm not from this township.
I'm pretty sure
So just tell me what crime was broken.
eventually it will get out.
We go to the gun range.
We don't have a problem with the gun range.
I go to the gun
I've
range.
shot guns hundreds of times. We're all Republicans.
Right, I know, I go to the public club.
What I'm trying to tell you is,
Address the, Dave, let's keep it.
Tom is like a month into the board. No,
I'm sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
Well, basically,
Hey, guys.
it's not that simple, you know what I mean?
Time out a second. We need to, like, this is the
Okay.
the procedure here. So if you can feel free to come down next for sure. You'll have your time. So, just keep it there.
So you did previously though state that if this same situation happened again, you would react the same way. You have said that, and we can bring tape on from multiple people on this board that you would
Sure, I
react the
just
same
told
way.
you- I just told you that I believe in the decision the board made and would make it again. That's That's what I just told you. But
Last-
you don't have all the facts. That's the reason. That's what we're trying to tell you. And listen, we want to get all of this out. We want to talk to everybody. And we want to hammer out a decision or a discussion. But the fact of the matter is, if we're going to err, if this board is going to err, it's going to err on the side of safety of the students. That's what's going to err on. And you know what? If
While
we're
you
guilty
violate
of that,
students' rights, while you violate students' rights.
that's your opinion.
No, that's
No,
not an
no,
opinion.
it's your opinion.
No,
That's what I
because
tried to
that's
tell
why
you.
you guys
It's
were
your
served with
opinion.
lawsuits.
We can go back and
That's
forth
why
all
you
day
guys
about
were
this.
already
This is
served
your-
with
I'll
2
give you my phone
lawsuits.
number.
Anybody
If
could
you
be
want, we
served
can
with
talk all night.
lawsuits. Doesn't mean you're guilty. Just remember that.
There's certain things that you may believe are right. Like someone may say, hey, posting something is my right. That's my First Amendment right. I can post whatever I want. Well, there was a Bayonne fireman who was suspended yesterday for posting what he wanted to post on Facebook. Why? Because it was, what he was doing, it wasn't right.
Because because some of the public is in a panic,
But is
that's why.
is that a First Amendment right violation, what he did?
I don't know what he did.
I just said he posted stuff.
What
He posted
kind of stuff?
He posted racist comments on his Facebook page. Is he allowed to do that? Is racism illegal? You want to answer?
I don't know if I can speak from the floor. That's
Just
why.
make it quick.
When you accept a job, okay, you have to subscribe to the code of conduct of that job. That's a contract. And unless something in that contract is specifically unconstitutional, you've agreed to terms of that, even to the point of maybe giving up some of your civil rights as a privilege of having that job. However, a public school system, you have no choice, okay? So you have to enforce the laws in the school system, the rules, excuse me, in the school system, the same as the laws go. And to answer your question earlier, the one student involved is 18 years old. I checked with the police department, and I checked with the prosecutor's office, and there were no charges filed. So there was no crime that was committed. And my whole argument is that we should just get a
We're
crime.
telling you it wasn't a crime. We already admitted it wasn't a crime.
So let me make a comment. Let me make a comment.
Exactly, it wasn't a crime. We never said it was.
It wasn't a crime.
There's rules. There's
Time out.
rules.
In the beginning of the year, when we send students home with a student handbook, if parents would have read the handbook and determined, especially parents that have, that firearms are part of the household and upbringing and respectful use of guns, safety, all that stuff, somebody could have read the handbook and said, whoa, under these circumstances, hypothetically, something could be done. I don't agree with that. Why now, all of a sudden, when this is, and this is, you know, as Mr. Whaley said, and the other gentleman came up, and I think he's sitting right up there, John, is it John? Jay. This is a polarizing issue, and we are sitting here going around and around and around, attacking each other, and you're talking about Mr. Subsey, and you're talking about how my kids don't go to school. Listen, we want to work with you. The superintendent just said we want to have a meeting, we want to come together, we want to work with you. If it means we have to rewrite things or look at things within the context of the law, we'll do it. The other thing is this, 15, 20 years ago, this didn't exist. So the whole host of issues that this device brings in regards to the educational process or the disruption of the educational process, the answer might be, maybe we don't allow these things in school. Who knows?
That would have solved the problem.
Right?
That would have solved the problem
But it
because
doesn't,
that post was done on the weekend.
what I'm saying, yes, but if,
That-
the weekend, this is where I would like to have a discussion with you as a board member and a parent, where we can have a discussion about the weekend, right? Because I totally agree. It's, you know, the weekend's your time. You parent your children on the weekend. I parent my kids on the weekend. But my kids know when they're in school from, 7 till 3, that they have to abide by the rules of the school. That's how I was raised. We're not saying,
Nobody's asking our kids to break rules.
yeah.
This happened outside of school.
I just think we have to come together and have communication, because we could sit here and just go around and around. I mean, that's all. Listen, we're here, we're listening to you. We're here when we're listening to you because we care. I know there were comments made in the last meeting about we're looking down, we're looking at cell phones, we are all volunteers, we have lives. I think I texted my kids goodnight the last time. Jobs that require us to respond. We want to listen. We don't want to sit here and argue with you, and the superintendent threw the olive branch out. We want to listen. I think it's time where we just get together and listen to each other. Fair enough?
Let's do it.
Fair enough?
I'm willing to do it.
Okay.
Can you put it on the calendar?
I work fast.
We
So,
serve 12 months a year.
We don't stop.
We don't stop.
My two boys are out of college. I'm free at night. I have many nights here. I'll be available, very, very short notice, within the week. But I need to know who, because I'm not gonna go eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I wanna know who. You just shoot me an email that's not inflammatory, insulting, or hateful, and I'll answer it. So if you send me an email and you wanna be interested, you're more than willing to come in. Or if you wanna write down your emails here, I'll have,
Do you have a notepad up there?
yeah.
I can take it.
Anybody who wants to meet will go up there and give you our name and our email.
Yeah,
and then we'll
we could
also
do it,
reach
yeah.
out to you.
I'd like to limit to a group of 10, just so we could not get off task too much. And then bring in maybe another administrator in, open up our policies, look a little deeper, and just start talking. Start talking about it.
The union should be there.
Well, I said-
Union
so we-
reps should be there. They represent the teachers. There is
Yeah,
much-
absolutely. Well, we would definitely bring a
Just
teacher.
as much in danger as the kids.
Right. I think if I get a group of, whatever, 7, 8, 9, 10 people, we'll put a group together within the week, within 5 days. But it'll be at night, so I know nights, some people, if they're working nights or whatever, but 7 o'clock, 6:30 at night, we can meet here in the high school.
Captain's Inn.
No. So we could do that, Mr. Horvath, which I think we've already had some discussion previously, and I think it's time to
And I think the
continue the
emails I sent
discussion.
you, I think you'll agree, we're not inflammatory or nasty or mean.
No. I don't know
I try to make that a
I don't know where they're coming from, but they're coming in, or they were. So I would rather have a productive conversation, an honest conversation, and move forward, and rather be on the forefront than on the backside of what's going on, not just locally, but nationally. Like I said, people are polarized, and I know that I'm not. I know, when you're confident in yourself and you know what you believe in, I'm comfortable to have that conversation and to move forward, rather than just regurgitate and spin and point fingers and blame. We're not going to get anywhere that way. And I value the community, I value your opinions, I value your values, as you should value mine. But I guarantee that there's a lot of commonality once we start to talk with you. So if we can get that information tonight, that would be wonderful. I'll get a group together within the next 5 days. We'll have an initial meeting just to talk first, maybe just talk, see where people are coming from, and then we can start looking at some resources and documents. Is that a plan? Does that work for people? And anyone's invited. I want you there. I want contradictory voices. I want people to put holes in things. But I also need to see, here's statute 18A and 6A that guide our schools and policies. Here's our policies that are online that have been vetted through school boards and different agencies, and start to see, like, this is what we're obliged to do, and how do we make it work so that it makes sense for everybody? And I definitely believe we'll have some common ground. I do believe we'll get common ground. Okay? Does that make sense? If we agree to do that?
Sounds good.
Good.
Gina, come on down.
Regina DeSantis, Sunset Drive, Sunrise Beach. I'd like to thank the administration for the monthly voucher reviews. As the board may be aware, I'm continuing to stay active in the district even though I'm no longer on the board. And thanks to the Open Public Records Act, I am permitted to continue to review monthly vouchers. The recent district budgets are nothing short of a miracle based on all the expenses the district has to deal with. Making up the deficit on solar renewable energy credits is no one person's fault, but the burden has fallen on the taxpayers, and that was never supposed to happen. Solar renewable energy credits were projected to be worth about $1,000 each, and they last sold for $212.50. That is a significant loss of revenue. While the solar project reduced the district's carbon footprint, it has done little to reduce the debt created by the $19.8 million solar bond. And tonight, if anyone looked on the agenda, there is a $1.9 million debt payment. So when people wonder where our tax dollars go, I can tell you it goes to debt, Now, a note of good news to the board. The Lacey Education Foundation is now underway. 5 generous people came forward out of the steering committee and volunteered to be the founders. I bought a P.O. box and I paid the state incorporation fee. We signed the incorporation papers on February 24th, 2018. This was a group effort, and I thank Mr. Robert Palladino, retired principal of the Forked River School, Mrs. Donna McAvoy, former board member, Mr. Dominic Miava, and Ms. Cindy Sabatelli for coming forward and assisting me with this endeavor. While we have completed several of the paperwork steps to get this foundation underway, it is a huge undertaking. The hurdle that lies ahead still are our bylaws, which we will operate under, and then the 1023 application to the IRS for the much-needed nonprofit 501c3 status, the whole key to this operation. Teachers, we will be bringing you all into the loop in the near future. If you've ever had to pass up a grant opportunity because it had to go to a nonprofit, these are the kinds of grants that the Lacey Education Foundation will be looking to assist with. We anticipate another 3 to 6 months for the IRS paperwork, and we're sorry it's taking so long, but I had to be off the Board of Education to bring this to fruition. And I just found out the IRS raised the application fee for a 501c3 to $600. But thankfully, we have some supporters who have already made some significant donations, including my own, that will cover the IRS fee. And we thank all those that have come forward with the startup funding. Thank you.
Regina, are you looking for members to join the foundation? And if so, what kind?
Not yet. It's not going to be a
Nothing
membership
yet?
foundation. No, we have a lot more paperwork to get through. We really can't function until we have the 501c3 letter. Okay?
Yeah, thanks.
Any questions? We do have an email. It's laceyef2018@gmail.com.
You may not be looking for members, but you're looking for donations.
Donations.
Right? I just wanted to
In the
make sure
future.
that was out there.
In the future.
Okay.
We're up,
Right away?
We're up to par.
All right.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. On to board member comments. I understand we did not do this last time, so forgive us if it's a couple minutes longer.
Well, first, before we get into the other part, Students of the Month, congratulations to our March and April Students of the Month, our unsung heroes, and the April vocational student. Congratulations, everybody. Great beginning to tonight, and actually tonight was a lot more productive than last week or last month, where we really didn't do too much last month. There was a lot of action on your side, not a lot of action on our side. So everybody said who they are, you know, where they are in the community, where they came from. I grew up here too. I went to school here. I graduated here in '97. I did all of the things that you guys did. I was a hunter. I was a fisher. I had a bow license. I did muzzle loading. I did trapping. How many of you guys did trapping in the room? Yeah, one guy. That's about right. Oh, make it 2. So to think that any of us up here are somehow anti-gun or not part of whatever's going on in the community here is pretty nuts, because we're all part of it too. I mean, a lot of us, some of us don't. Some of us had kids that went through the school already. Some of us got kids that are going into the school already. But I'll take a minute, because nobody, you know, we've heard it from a couple guys up here. Maybe they don't want to answer your questions, but maybe they'll answer my questions. Does anyone on this board have a problem with anybody going to a range over the weekend, shooting guns with their parents or with some kind of responsible adult? Anybody at all? Just go ahead and shout it out.
Absolutely not.
All right, everybody, are we a little more satisfied now? We're all on the same page here. I know it doesn't look that way, because we couldn't say a lot last time, and everybody clearly had more of an agenda on their plate last time. Everybody had what they wanted to say. They wanted to get up. They wanted to yell and scream. Not everybody. Some people were reasonable about it. Some people made good points. Anybody remember, I know I graduated with a couple people here. In '95, there was a guy named Army Al. Anybody remember a guy named Army Al that went to school here? All right. Army Al wanted to run for president of our school. He wanted to be the school board president. So Army Al's video that he made in '95 or '94, help me out, what was it?
around there, right? Yeah. 97. It was, no, I knew he graduated in 97, but he was already president earlier than that. 94, all right. So this guy was a little extreme, shall we say. He wore a lot of camouflage, a little intense. So he made a video of him crawling through the woods, wearing full camouflage. His face was covered, everything. Crawls to the edge of the woods. What's he looking at? He's looking at the back of the school, the one we're sitting in right now. And then he goes back to him. He's got a big smile on his face, and he plunges a detonator and blows the thing up. And it, cheesy 1990s graphics. He blows up the school, and it says, "Army out for president." And we all stood up, and we cheered for Army out. And guess who was the president the next year? It was Army out. We let him lead the place. 97, I went to school here. I was on a paintball team, too. There was a guy who said he had a kid who got in trouble for a paintball gun. You can go to a yearbook, one year, and I'm wearing we had a team called South Jersey Snipers. It was the outline of New Jersey with a target over top of it. And we wore our jerseys on Fridays. When all the football guys were wearing their jerseys, our team wore our jerseys when we were playing over the weekend. Nobody ever told me to turn that shirt inside out, but I certainly remember being earlier in school and having the "have a nice day" with the smiley face and the bullet hole in it, and I had to turn that one inside out. I don't remember ever being offended by this. It was sort of, acceptable, I guess. That being said, I will like to say to the administrators and stuff, maybe guys, the stickers and stuff like that, maybe pump the brakes a little bit, all right? The shooter stuff and things like this. There's a limit, we're not going to push it past the limit, but everybody be, sensitive of what's going on. I'm talking to our side here, the administrators. There might be kids who come in with these, stickers or whatever. Who cares? Let it roll over, let it roll off, no big deal. So I graduated in 97, but then in 99 or whatever it was, Columbine happened. And the story started to change a little bit. It's not the same school that we remember, because a lot of us are older. I don't see too many young kids here right now. A lot of us don't really remember going through school, and school shootings weren't a thing. This generation that's graduating now, that's all they've known their entire life, is school shootings as a thing that happens. I don't know how any other way to explain it. You have to be sensitive to what's going on. You guys are saying the bigger picture out there. We're not part of stripping away your conservative values or whatever this is. This is not bipartisan up here. This is not one side and the other side. We're nonpartisan. There's no D next to my name. There's no R next to my name. There's no I. I didn't make any promises to any group I didn't make any promises to any of you, for that matter. My name was on a ballot, and you all just said, "Hey, that guy." So this one's on you. So for the next couple of years, here I'm sitting, all right? If you guys want to recall me next year because you don't like the words I'm saying to you, by all means, I welcome it. Bring it on. I'm serious. If you want to take me off of this job, fine, by all means, take me off a year and a half early. You're not going to hear me complaining, but I'll sit here until the end of 2020 because that's what I'm supposed to do. I signed up for it. I put my money where my mouth is, and here I am. Not in some hypothetical future where she's out and he's out and you're in and they're in. Right now, today, here I'm sitting with the mic in front of me because you guys did it. You guys put it here. So anybody that wants to run in November, it's very easy to get on board. You got to be a citizen, you got to be a resident of the town, you got to be old enough to vote, you got to be able to read and write. I think that's pretty much it for the regulations. And 10 signatures, and 10 signatures. So get those from your neighbors. Boom, you're done. Flood the ballot, because there was 4 of us on the ballot this last November. 4 of us.
And I beat you, actually.
You
just so
beat
you
me
know.
by 30 points. Get out of here. This guy's running a campaign up and down the street. I did nothing. I told everybody not to vote
That's
for me.
actually
You guys did
a
anyway.
lie.
Yeah, I know. Do you in the back row? You know
Rob,
it's
maybe
true.
you should quit while you're ahead.
Whatever. He's way over there. I'm not worried about that guy. But
Someone turn off Rob's mic, please.
don't turn off my mic yet. All right. So listen, guys. I don't know. It's been a wild ride so far. We've been sitting up here for 4 months. January was a blowout. Nobody was here. February, we sat here, and it was a couple days after Parkland, and there was nobody here. It was, again, we played the crickets. And then all of a sudden, March happened. Somebody thought somebody was messing with somebody's guns or somebody's taking away somebody's rights. And everybody comes out of the woodwork, wants to fight and scream and yell. Guys, and here you are again. I mean, it's not, we're not here to strip away your guns, your rights, anything like that. Your First Amendment rights are not absolute. Unless you guys, we've alluded to this a couple times here. You cannot say anything you want, whenever you want, to whoever you want. That's a fact. You can't yell fire in a theater. You can't talk about bombs at the airport. When you get a job, you can't say what you want to the employees. You can't say what you want to your boss, to the customers going in there. You can, and when you're in school, it's a whole different ball game, unless you guys don't remember what it was like. Do you guys remember a high school where you could run around, say where you want, do what you want, when you wanted? Or was there actual classes where you sat in there, had to follow the rules? If you broke the rules, maybe you had to go to detention or whatever it was. So there is limits on these sort of things. You know, it's not just I can say what I want, when I want. My rights are absolute. That's absolutely not true. So my wife went to a school here too, and in 2000, she got kind of like railroaded, I guess you could say, by the school. She never had a driver's ed class. She went to graduate in 2000. They did not let her walk with her class at the end of 2000 because she didn't have a driver's ed class. So she wasn't allowed to walk with her class, and then she had to drive to summer school after graduating high school in the car that she owned with a license from the state of New Jersey. I didn't see any kind of people coming out of anywhere to argue for this and saying, what about this, what about that? You know, there's consequences when you do something, all right? You guys understand? Everyone made a big deal about illegal versus legal. You know, there was a word missing out of a handbook. You know, they're all legal. We'll just say they're all legal until they're not anymore, all right? You know who doesn't care about legal, illegal, lawfully owned, unlawfully lawful? Anybody who ever got shot by a gun doesn't care where it came from on any level. So that there was a word missing out of a handbook, like they said, it had good intentions, but it didn't work out like that, all right? Everybody went and they mined through the book, they found a word that was missing, they make a big deal about it, they blend it to another case that has nothing to do with it and scramble them together, and that's what we had last month when you guys were here. So, I don't really know the way to say it, but, you know, I don't speak for the whole board here. I don't work for you guys. I volunteer my time on behalf of the town. They say it's the greatest volunteer job you can do. It's really not, because I'm also a firefighter in town, and I will take that job every day over this job. So it's not the greatest volunteer job that you can do, but it's pretty good for the community. We don't get paid anything to sit here. We've sat here for hours and hours. We've listened to everybody's stories. We meet up all the time. We meet up on Mondays, we meet up on Tuesdays to go over policy meetings, we go over these meetings, all eating into our lives to come and do this for you guys. So if you want to recall any of us or bounce us out of here, by all means, you're welcome to try. But I'll tell you, the group of people that ran was very light last time. Nobody wants to do this job, and there's a reason for that. Because you sit up here in the firing line, and you get beat up by everybody for no reason. We had nothing to do with any of this. You think me and Tom, we've been sitting here for a couple months. We had nothing to do with any of this. The other guys didn't. I graduated in 97. They say that the rules were in 95. Linda was here in 95. I don't think that she violated my rules, violated my rights. You know, maybe later on I'll think that you did, but right now I don't. So, listen, guys, I do appreciate that everybody comes out. I want you guys to keep doing this. You know, if we want to keep doing this month after month, let's move forward with this, though. This wasn't last month. We've gone somewhere. We're not in the same place we were. Maybe a month from now it's a little bit better. We'll see. But thank you guys for your comments. Thanks for coming out. If I came off a little harsh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that, guys. But all right, Mr. President, I think that's good.
Well done, thank you. Nick?
Thank you.
Mr. Morandi.
A little long-winded.
Ah,
It's like when I used to sit next to Regina.
I took her seat.
All right, real quick, if I got loud before I talk loud, that's basically it. Number one, Students of the Month, let's get this out of the way. April 26th, 29th, I hope we see a good crowd for Guys and Dolls. Hannah and Melanie, Mill Pond, the volunteers fundraiser, Popcorn Zoo, way to go. We need a lot more volunteers. The band members, bowling and wrestling. I'm going to say one thing about me because whoever was streaming, my wife wants to thank you because she was working at night. But Kristen, just to, I don't know if Kristen's here or not, just to let her know, I think Mr. Rizzoli must mention I was a police officer. So she must have looked me up. She said, Carteret, excuse me, I don't want to go on my phone. I don't want to miss, who is this Morandi? He was Carteret, only 25 years. Why did he leave? 4 question marks. Problems? No, I retired 25 years, so I didn't get fired. I didn't have any charges against me. I just retired, okay? It was that time. Wanted to spend time with my family and kids. I live 60 miles away from where I worked. And whoever called us morons, my friend called me a moron when I ran for this position. He goes, what are you, nuts? He goes, you just retired 25 years, thankless job. Someone told me it was 1 meeting a month. Let me tell you something, this takes away from our family life. I got another job, takes away from that. Groups, if you want to meet with us, the Seabreeze guys, I think President Claus said we're meeting with them. I go to the Trenton, I go to meetings in Trenton about medical benefits and stuff like that. So it's a lot more time. We do not get paid. I don't have anyone in the school system that's related to me. So, Frank, totally agree with you. Now, I don't know if people notice, we don't go out and look. I see people, I look at my kid's Twitter and all the stuff. He's 18, I still look at it. But know what, we see people all the time. And know what, people say, red cups, this and that, firing range. We don't bring it to the board's, the administrator's attention. This was brought to school. I'm the first one that says that after every meeting, parents got to get involved with the kids. We don't want to rule over your kids' lives 24 hours a day. We worry about when they're in here. A lot of problems are brought to our attention, things that happen on the outside. We can't ignore them, okay? That's number one. If anyone listened to me at the last meeting, I tried to inform yous, because know how I heard about this incident? After, and listen, I love Lacey Chatter. I find a lot of good things, restaurants, doctors and stuff like that. But my kid calls me up, he goes, Dad, what did you do? I go, what do you mean? He goes, she's all over Lacey Chatter. It's got to be about 100 comments, okay? Half the people in the room last week probably had no clue what the picture was, okay? I guarantee probably 70, 80% people didn't know the exact picture. I'm not going to say what it was. But know what, my wife goes, why would the kids get in trouble for 2 little girls in a hunting outfit? Why would that get them in trouble? And I saw it on Lacey Chatter. That picture had to circulate a few times, okay? So a lot of people don't know what was going on here. And another thing I brought up was, and I brought it up today, listen, the due process. When I was a police officer, if I wrote you a ticket, Frank, if you pled guilty, no one else hears about it. You go to court, pay your ticket, no one knows about it. If you plead not guilty, then there's a hearing and stuff like that. Just like here. You know what? A few times a month, we sit down with parents, okay? That kids might have gotten in trouble on. I'm not going to tell you what the incidents are, but we sit with them. And we try to straighten out the problems. And you know what? We're trying to get these kids help, okay? Or if they did something wrong, try to straighten them out. You know what? Most of the stuff that these kids get in trouble for, detention, okay? We don't hear about it. But I guarantee 90% of it's common sense. And that's why I tell my kid, have some common sense. Watch where you post. It's going to live with you, okay? But getting away from that, too. We disagree on one thing. Okay, you said if something happened outside, you go right to attorney. Not me. I'm a parent. Listen, I'm going to go to the source of where the problem was. And if it was the principal, no one's perfect. No, the principals aren't perfect. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. The administrator's not perfect. They might have made a mistake. Might have. I'm not saying they did. They might have made a mistake. But know what? If they did, and the parents weren't happy with it, like I said, there's a process. Okay? Teacher to principal, principal to administrator, administrator to the Board of Ed. And like I said, we're probably a couple times a month, we go through some hearings, okay? So, the apology part, I don't think I need to apologize to anybody. And know what, I'm not gonna apologize just to apologize. If I'm gonna apologize, because of my opinion, and I think you would think this is right too, are you just gonna throw out an apology? No, I wanna talk to the parents, I wanna talk to the kids, have a discussion, and if I think I was wrong, maybe if, like I said, if I think I was wrong, then I'm gonna give an apology. I'm not gonna give an apology to everybody else, except for the parents or the kid. And that's if I thought I was wrong. And know what, I might apologize because of the way they didn't understand the process, maybe. If I think the board was right or the administration was right, then I might apologize, like I said. No, maybe you didn't know you could appeal the process up to the next level. I'm not just gonna throw apologies out to a crowd of angry people because you demand apology. If I said it before, if I was the parent involved in this, and I saw the comments on leash chatter and stuff, me being a parent the way I am, I'd say, listen, everyone mind their own business, I'll take care of it. Okay? She said that maybe they're afraid something might happen. Well, no, you gotta talk to somebody. What happened last week? You know, everyone just screaming over each other. You know, it should have never took place, but I'm glad that Superintendent Wigley is going to have a meeting with, and maybe I'll be involved, I'm not sure, but I would love to sit down and talk and try to straighten this matter out. The handbook, I don't know if everyone got it. The kids weren't charged. I mean, no one violated their Second Amendment rights. No, what, the policy might have been written wrong, the handbook might have been written wrong, that's why it was changed, but the kids had nothing to do with right, they weren't charged with something like that, so. With that, no, I might as well shut up because I might get into some personal stuff, but, like I said, I hope in the future, because that's how I am, you know, I used to, for 25 years, I had to resolve problems, you know, you don't beat people up, you don't shoot people, you don't arrest them for no reason. I know it happens nowadays, but that's not the kind of guy I was. I'm a talker, and I try to solve problems. So hopefully we could solve problems without screaming. And Fox News, if you could get Jesse here, I love Jesse Waters. So. Oh man, yeah, I do. So anyway,
Once we solve the problems. They're waiting impatiently, I might add.
thank you, President.
All right, thank you, Nick.
My turn?
Mrs. Downing?
Okay, first of all,
Oh, excuse me for 1 minute.
sure.
No, I
You gotta
just
wait.
said this. Hey, listen,
wait.
know what? I'm doing this 2 years, this is my second year. And know what? Give her some kudos, you just want to recall her. She's been doing this over 25 years. Can you imagine giving up over 25 years of your days? And listen, she had kids, grandkids, crazy. Listen, if I do another term, God bless.
I like the if.
25 years, instead of you should be writing everyone has issues, you know why? You know, the recall was because she was here the longest. No, you should have recalled me instead of her. Because no one, for someone to dedicate their life over 25 years to a school board, that's nuts. So, and not getting paid, I could see she was getting a second pension from this, but she's not, so. Go ahead, Linda.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you. Since you brought up the petition, I might as well start with that. In my response to the petition that was put in the Asbury Park Press, my first comment was, first of all, our board policies, first of all, it wasn't a weapons policy violation, but our policies are all adopted and executed by state districts throughout the state. Same policies. The state mandates different things, different laws and different policies. We actually have a company that is so respected and used probably by 80% of the districts across the state, Strauss and Esme. They actually find out the new laws. They give us the mandated policies, the suggested policies, and we use those as guidelines. and they are used throughout the state, so it's not just our policies. And Nick brought it up, the issue, this whole issue was never appealed to the board level. We don't do discipline. That's not our role. First of all, we don't get paid, and we don't get paid to discipline, that's for sure. The board level is the last level to appeal the discipline, and that's part of the due process. Nothing was appealed to us as a board. I don't have an ego. I have been an educator for a long time, and I'm very passionate about education and more passionate about the safety of our kids and staff, but kids. As a former first grade teacher, when that shooting in Connecticut and they shot all those first graders, oh my God, that was the hardest day. I can't imagine what it must be like, and I am extremely passionate about safety for our students and in this district, and I am very proud that we have a wonderful relationship with the Lacey Police, who are constantly working with us on safety procedures. And I hope on Wednesday night we have Alice training. I just hope every parent comes out to hear what that is all about, because it's, we actually, some of us sat through the trainings, and I was amazed. So even if you don't have kids in school, come to the training. I think you'll be impressed. Okay, so when I saw that petition, I guess number one, I was very hurt, because I've put in a lot of years in this district to do the best I can for the kids in this school. And then second of all, then it went from being hurt to being pissed off, excuse my language. And I did nothing wrong. So to have a petition against me, that's all I'm going to say. Let's get to the more positive things. I want to congratulate and thank the Students of the Month and the Unsung Heroes. My God, with their busy schedules and their great grades, what great kids they are. I already talked about Alice. I talked about the petition. I want to recognize, having a daughter that went through Lacey High School and the music program, I want to congratulate those students that made All Shore Band or Symphonic Band. That is quite an accomplishment. That's quite competitive, and for 5 students from one school to make it, that is commendable. So congratulations to them. Congratulations to the bowling and the wrestling team and the Popcorn Zoo Park fundraiser. Now I know where I can bring all my old blankets and old pet stuff, because I had cats and I don't anymore, so now I know I can bring them there. And I want to thank, does she pronounce her name Nemec? Holly Nemec. I want to thank her for her presentation on autism. Autism is huge now in New Jersey. A lot of you probably all have at least one person you know that has autism. And a lot of people who don't understand autism don't understand and are not tolerant of children with autism or even adults that have autism. So I want to thank her for giving that brief presentation, and thank the schools for, was that Mill Pond School or middle school? Mill Pond, for doing the presentation with the students. I think children are more tolerant of children with autism than adults, and I don't think adults understand it as well as we all should. Even as an educator, I'm learning all the time what autism is all about. I guess that's it, Mr. President Voss. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's it for now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Dan Scaletti.
Okay, I'm just going to reiterate a couple of things here. First of all, the Unsung Heroes and the Students of the Month, that's always a great pleasure for us, especially to watch the video. And I'll tell you, the one guy that did the interviews today was what a character. Yeah. Also, I wanted to congratulate the bowling team for back-to-back state championships. The wrestling team members, I remember those guys when they were little kids. I coached them a little bit when they were in the rec program, and all 3 of them were awesome kids and have bright futures ahead of them. Ms. Nemec also, Station, fine art students, the Popcorn Park Zoo fundraiser kids. Also, I wanted to thank Mill Pond, 5th grade, Mr. Slow. The 5th grade Mill Pond teachers for allowing me to join them on a field trip to Cloverdale Farms in Barnegat. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and the kids had a blast. Basically, they were looking for little bugs in the cranberry box. It was awesome. For those of you who don't know, Alice training is training that our teachers and our staff are going to be going over for safety purposes in case of certain things that happen in the school. That's the Alice training. I don't know if anyone mentioned that or not. I know we mentioned Alice training, but some people are just hearing Alice and thinking, what is that? That's our training that we're going to be doing for safety measures. Unfortunately, I wasn't at last month's meeting. It was pretty contentious from what I understand. We all sit up here and, I guess it's human nature that when you start attacking someone, they either get defensive or they clam up, and I'm not saying that's what happened. We were advised not to speak about the certain incident, and I'm sure we skirted the boundaries of talking about the incident without mentioning the students today. And, I made a comment to Ms. Buron that I am totally confident in the decision we made as a board. I can't speak for the rest of everybody, but I will stand by that statement. We have facts that you don't have. Maybe you believe you have all the facts, and, I don't know if those facts can get out or not, but with the information that we had gathered, we believe the right thing was done. And I believe the right thing was done. I won't speak for everybody else. I understand everybody's ire. Believe me, I do. I get it. But like I said earlier, as a board member, if we err on the side of student safety and faculty safety and caution, so be it. I'm not admitting an error. I don't believe an error was made in this judgment. And just trust me, or trust the people up here, that if you were sitting here, the same decision would have been made. If any of you four were sitting right here, the same decision would have been made. Absolutely. It would have been made. And we can agree to disagree. We can agree to disagree.
It may have been the same, but it would
The result have been the same. The result would have been the same.
may have been handled much different.
You know what? Here's the issue, and everybody's aware of the term fake news. Everybody's aware of that term fake news, correct? I had emails sent to me from 2 newsletters. Blue Lives Matter, it was a Blue Lives Matter. The person that sent me the email tagged this article. It was written, I don't know where this man was from Texas. I read the article. They used Lacey Chatter and hearsay as fact in that article, as did the American Military News. And if anybody would like me to send you the copy, they were stating what they thought was the policy that we were using for discipline. They were clearly wrong. This is my...
Was it a policy, whether it was the one you were using for that discipline, was it a policy of the school, or was it totally made up?
No, it was a policy of the school, but they were stating that the kids were disciplined because of that policy, which they weren't. Because they were speculating, because no one on the board told anybody. So in reality, it was shoddy journalism. They got no facts, but they needed to write something, so they wrote something that was untrue. And clearly untrue.
Policy that was reworded?
What I'm trying to say is they said that that policy was the reason the kids were, what's the word I'm looking for? Disciplined. I won't say punished. And they're wrong. But they got everybody's ire up where someone called me un-American. I'm not a true American. Come by my house, the American flag flying right now with a light on it at night, by the way. I love this country as much as you do. I love the Constitution, and I love Thomas Jefferson. He's got great quotes, and he was a genius. But we sit up here, and we have to make hard decisions. We didn't make this decision, but we support the decision. We support it. I support it. And you know what? You may think we took some civil liberties away. I mean, dare I mention the Patriot Act? But let's move on. Congratulations to all those students. Hopefully, when we sit down, if I'm a member of the committee, we can come to some agreements. Doesn't have to be complete, but I hope everyone will get some sense of closure out of it and we can move past it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Blas.
Congratulations to all the students of the month, the bowling team, the wrestlers, everybody who has done great things for the district. Congrats. You know, it's funny, there's this perception that like, oh, Tom will be the one to be the hothead, and actually I'm not, because the last meeting that I missed, I was actually in Thailand cornering my student who won a fight in brutal fashion. You know, I've had my head kicked in, I've had my face smashed in. I understand conflict. I don't get mad easy over things. And what I heard tonight was people coming to a resolution, almost, right? We're gonna meet, we're gonna talk, we're gonna come together. I thought it was a very good meeting. A little long, right? A little long for us, but it was a really good meeting. And, you know, I feel that the tone it started in is not the way it ended. I feel that we've come a long way during this meeting, and I'm thankful for that. So I'm just thankful to be here, volunteering my time. Thankful that you guys came out. Hopefully you could keep coming out, even when this issue resolves, to show support as well. And happy to be here, and I hope everyone has a great weekend.
Thank you very much. Mr. Giordano.
So I'll try to be brief. First, I want to congratulate the students of the month. As I always say, these are the finest examples of our students, and between their course loads and what they do in the classroom, out in the athletic fields, with the arts, they're just a great representation of their fellow classmates. So we have Seton Hill, Ramapo, I think one starting at OCC to eventually go to NJIT. Great schools. So, you know, we talked about a lot of different things tonight, and it's unfortunate that Amanda, the woman that was sitting behind you, left, because I did say something during some of the dialogue, and I wanted to clear the air and tell you what I said. I said, so she can watch this. I said, please run. Please run. I've always encouraged people in this town to be actively involved in this, and the fact that we had 4 people run for 4 open seats, or 5 people run for 4 open seats, or 4 for 2, I would encourage more parent participation. Number 2, you know, I always talk about education doesn't, it starts and ends in the home. We're just fortunate enough to have students for several hours a day. There's no desire here for anybody in this administration, anybody on this staff, or anybody that's probably associated to parent your children or the children of this town on the weekends. You asked some questions about things and wanted some direct answers, and I think we all said that we would have no problems with any of our children going to a range and displaying the correct, proper, safe use of firearms with an adult if they're a minor, or if they're 18 and they have whatever IDs necessary. No one's ever said that. I'll comment again, I don't believe my children not going here makes a bit of difference. I'm giving back to the community in which I live. In fact, if any of you are thinking of running for school board and are elected and serve, you'll be faced with doing a lot of reading, a lot of educating of yourself, a lot of looking at what other school districts do in regards to policy, in regards to curriculum, in regards to technology, in regards to strategic planning, all these things. There's a lot of education that you'll have to put yourself through. As everybody else has stated tonight, having 2 young kids, we spend an awful amount of time away from our families. Tonight, when we have policy meetings or when we have the different committee meetings, when we're involved in different side groups, this is a big investment of time. So if you took that I was being arrogant by saying, please come do this, we want to, it's because this is a lot of time. And if you really want to do this, then please come out and do it. I do it because I've been here for 46 years. Parents moved down here when I was 2. I love this town. It's where I was raised. So I have a lot of memories here growing up. You know, I love the kids of this town, I love these schools, I love the, you know, the people that we work with on this board. It's a very diverse group of folks. Yes, there's been some turnover in the years, but I can tell you that anybody I've ever served with on this board is 100% dedicated to the students of this township. And it's why I made my comment about Board Member Downing in the beginning. I think the actions that the group is taking is really says something to all those that have volunteered before and all those that will volunteer after. But hey, at the end of the day, we're just volunteers. We're trying to do the best we can. And, you know, we put in a lot of time to do that. And I'll just end it with this. I think tonight, you heard our superintendent talk to a community member, come together. We're going to have more discussion. I think we need to have more discussion. I'm a true believer in that these things that really every parent should monitor their children's cell phone use and what they're posting online, and whether or not it's appropriate or whether or not it may be appropriate in their own home or in the school environment. Super important. And one thing, and I know you're filming this and this is great, you mentioned something when you were on the at the podium speaking about intimidation and parents being afraid of intimidation. So I can tell you this, I'm on this board for another 2 years. If there's ever somebody that feels intimidated to come forward to speak because of some kind of retaliatory action, I want to know about it. Not saying they're right, not saying they're wrong, not saying we're right, we're wrong, but nobody should feel intimidated. Decisions should be based on facts, and as Board Member Saletti said, we based our opinion of things on facts. Administration bases their action on facts. And I'm a pretty firm believer that if the four of you were sitting up here, I know you were nodding your head before and you said we would have had the same outcome. We might have had the same outcome, but I bet you we would be having a discussion to say how we could make it better. And that's why you're all here tonight, okay? And that's why you need to continue to come here. I know I made the comment about the budget meeting. 6 people showed up at the budget meeting. 6. But we had a room full of people. So I'm going to end it with this. People in the town need to be involved. You need to be out here. You need to get involved. And I appreciate you guys for coming out tonight. I appreciate the filming, putting it on Facebook Live. And honestly, I appreciate you for your comments and at least caring to come out here and passionately share your viewpoint. We listen to you up here. That's what we do. Okay? Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and only because I'm looking at calendars, and I know Mr. Claus just said that he wants to be at this first meeting, so I'm going to try and coordinate. I mean, this week is shot, but I am free next Tuesday and Thursday, so if I get a group email out to this group and try and set something up, I'm going to try and work on his schedule. I know there's a couple other board members that are interested, so I think they're going to want to sit in. Maybe we'll rotate people through so they can all meet the group. So I'm just not sure yet, but I think I list somewhere, there's a pencil, paper. I'll just make sure I get it before we go, and then and we'll go from there. And I already received one email, which I'm thankful for, so, but it's cwigley@laceyschools.org. If you want to send me one, Mr. Horvath, you shot me one, but I know your email, and I'll copy that back. So sooner the better. I think we strike while iron is hot, and people still have their passion going, and we can address some concerns. Okay? So stay posted. Hopefully, I can get Mr. Claus to commit to a day because he wants to be there for the first one.
Yeah, I do.
All right.
Okay. In effort of time, I'll try to be a little quick too. I mean, it seems like everybody's said everything I've been thinking. But obviously, I want to say congratulations to the kids, because that's the best part of the night. Just to see the smile on the kids' faces. One of the other guys in the crowd said, it's incredible. That's why we do what we do. That's why teachers do what they do, and everybody in the organization does. So congratulations to the Students of the Month and the bowling club, the bowling team. It's incredible records they have. Performing arts folks, wrestling, everybody. As far as meetings go, our last meeting, I've been doing this I'm in my 3rd year, but this is only my 4th shot at being, Mr. President. But, our last meeting wasn't one of our shining moments, and it was a little embarrassing for me on all sorts of fronts, for people calling me and saying, the way way we acted, the way the crowd acted, everything. So if you want an apology, I'll give you an apology for how I ran that meeting. It could have gone better on all fronts. I think we came out a little defensive, and we probably could have been more vocal or said more things, but just didn't know where to go with it because everything we said, we were just getting yelled at for. So I'm going to apologize for that. I feel like this meeting did go a lot better. We started out a little bit shaky, but we turned the corner, and I feel like we're getting somewhere right now. So putting together a committee is going to be a big thing for us. It's going to help us moving forward. As far as Linda goes, I understand everybody has their opinions and everybody has their grudges and things that they want to go after people for. I've known Linda for a couple years now. Since before I even got on the board, I met Linda. And I can tell you this, it's not 25 years, it's actually 27, I think, isn't it? I don't know anybody else in town. There's one other person I know in town that's put that kind of time. And to be a volunteer and go through this all the time, there's good months, there's bad months. Budgets, that means, what, 27 budgets she's had to go through. Some good, some not so good. It's a lot of work, and I think she deserves a lot more credit than she's getting. I support her. I think she's a great person. If she were to run again, I'd vote for her.
Thanks, Ron.
As far as the board itself in general, people talk about it and say we're going to, replace the whole thing and recall it. I want you to think about what we have going on here. So Rob Riggs is a lifelong resident of Lacey, went to high school, his family's got a business in town. You can't be more invested in that. Nick Morandi has been in town forever too. His son is just graduating and going to Penn State, although he could have gone to the U, but that's all right. But
I didn't always live here. I moved back here when I had kids because I remember the schools being really good, and I wanted my kids to go into a good school. And
And
that's
there
when
you
I
go.
moved back to town.
Yes.
My kid was 11 months old, and I moved back to town.
So, and Nick has always been, I've coached with Nick T-ball, way back. I'd take those days back in a second. But Linda, she's been in town forever too, and we just said 27 years she's been doing this. That's dedication. Sean, I've known Sean forever. He just said he's been here 46 years. We played football together at Lacey. He's, lived in town forever. Not me, I've been here as far as I call it, beginning of time, but graduated Lacey, stayed here, never left. I have kids that go here. Chris, he's not, he's our board lawyer, but he's been here probably longer than a lot of us, and like he said, he was the guy running around in the woods, and he's, a lawyer in town. He's vested, and he wants to make, you guys don't even know the stuff he does for us, that there's no other lawyer would do the things that Chris does for us. So, we need to keep that in mind. Tom's got a business in town. He's got kids that go to school here. He's vested too. And Dave, I like to call him Dan because somebody made a mistake one day. But he's been in town his family's been in town for a long time too, and he's got his daughter in school right now, and everybody's got a vested interest. We're not doing this because we're going to get something out of it, or clearly we've all said it, we don't get paid. So, anybody else wants to do it, feel free to come up. Every year there's a couple seats open, and come on in. Just when you come here, you can't have your own agenda. You can't be in it for yourself. You have to be in it for the school, for the kids, and for the town. So, and it doesn't matter who you are. When you get on the board, everybody's going to work together. So that's all I got to say, I guess. I could keep going, but it's getting late. So, but thank you, yes, for the people that did come out tonight. We do, believe it or not, on the nights when it's just us and, Tony and Regina, it gets a little lonely. So, we appreciate your comments, though. Exactly, make it a little exciting.
At least some better attendance.
Well, the best part is the kids that got the awards, everybody got to see it. Nobody comes to see that stuff. And that's awesome. I wish we had a big crowd for at least that part, but we don't, so whatever. That's all I have to say. Thank you for those that stuck through it tonight, thank you for staying. Yes. So we need to go through this stuff now? All right. On to what we do. Okay, can I get a motion for a new business, 1 to 14?
Move it.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Riggs? Mr. Blas?
Yes.
Mr. Morandi?
Yes.
Mr. Saletti?
Yes.
Mrs. Downing?
Yes, except for item 2 on bill number 951390. I'm abstaining, and yes on all the rest.
Thank you. Mr. Giordano.
Yes.
Mr. Claus.
Yes.
Thank you.
B, donations. Thank you very much, everybody. Can I get a motion?
Move. Second.
Mr. Riggs. Mrs. Blas.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Morandi.
Yes, thank you. Superintendent Wigley, I think the Rotary was here earlier. They didn't realize
Yes.
it was
They're coming back on the 21st, yeah, they came a little early, so we're gonna reschedule that for next week.
Yeah, they gave 300 dictionaries at $1,500. And Rotary Club does a lot for us, so thank you very much, and hope to see you next meeting.
Mr. Saletti.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes.
Mr. Giordano.
Yes.
Mr. Claus.
Yes. C, programs and curriculum.
Move.
Second.
Sir. Mr. Riggs.
Yes.
Mr. DeBlas.
Yes.
Mr. Morandi.
Yes.
Mr. Saletti.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes.
Mr. Giordano.
Yes.
Mr. Claus.
Yes. D, professional days and workshops.
Move.
Roll.
Who is the motion? I'm sorry.
The motion was...
Mr. Morandi.
And then Briggs.
And Riggs, and the
Thank
other
you.
second.
Mr. Riggs.
Yes.
Mr. DeBlas.
Yes.
Mr. Morandi.
Yes.
Mr. Saletti.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes, but I'm abstaining on Vanessa P. Clark for her professional day.
Thank you.
Okay, E...
I have to, I'm sorry, Mr. Giordano.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Claus.
Yes.
Yes, now I have to make a read-in,
Yes.
or say, before we go to certificated personnel, item E8 will be revised to read as follows. Move that the board approve the following leave of absence with pay and benefits through April 30th, 2018, then without pay and benefits from May 1st, 2018 to a date to be determined.
Move. Second.
Oh, wait, I got to do the whole E then, right? Or
Do
that's
the whole
separate?
E.
Okay.
So who was first? I'm sorry.
That was Sean.
No, it wasn't me.
Who was it down there?
That was Nick.
Nick.
Nick and I heard Dave, right? Okay. Mr. Riggs.
Yes, congratulations on the retirement.
Mr. DeBlas.
Yes.
Mr. Morandi.
Yes.
Mr. Saletti.
Yes, and thank you for your service.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes, I'm abstaining on number 1. And I want to congratulate Janine Howley on her retirement effective July 1st.
Thank you. Mr. Giordano.
Yes, and I want to abstain on the leave of absence.
The E8, is that correct, sir?
That's correct, on E8.
Mr. Claus.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Next page.
Personnel certificate. Yep.
Hold on, I'm scrolling. I'm not good with this pad, so... I got it, I just got to it, I guess. So F, non-certificated personnel, 1 through 4.
Move it. Second.
Roll.
Sir. Mr. Riggs. Mr. DeBlas.
Yes.
Mr. Morandi.
Yes.
Mr. Saletti.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes.
Mr. Giordano.
Yes.
Mr. Claus.
Yes. That is all of the new business. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.